30 seconds early. Yeah, that's right. I don't know why I'm on one so much right now. It's probably because I had to. This is probably, you don't care about this, but there's no L train in New York, which is kind of how I get around. They got rid of it for the weekend because they're doing some sort of track repair or something. So then I had to take a fucking electric bike here because you got to go over the goddamn bridge because I live in Brooklyn. So I was like, you know what, I'll take an e-bike even though it's freezing. And then it died. The e-bike died. And then I had to pedal it. So it's now like a bike that just weighs 140 pounds or something. You got to pedal it up this fucking bridge. Stinks. Anyways, welcome everybody to all new episodes. I mean, they're not new. This episode is new. What we're doing in this moment here. My hands are cut off. Yeah, my hands are cut off a little. It's fine. Who cares? Who cares? Welcome back, everybody. I've missed you all. The queens have missed you. What's up, queens? What is up, queens? To all the queens out there. We're back. I'm not trying to show you my shirt, but my headphones are like dragging along the zipper. It's a real shit show. Nobody likes to know how the sausage is made, and you're getting a real sneak peek. Actually, hold on 1 second here. We're just going to do something real quickly. We're going to, you do this with for people who are listening, has no idea what I'm talking about. I'm kind of unraveling my headphone cord. Let's go. Probably should have started late because I probably should have got this stuff out of the way. And here I am bragging about starting early. So, welcome back. We got more female dating strategy for all you high-value males, which is this first episode actually is about the high-value males, the low-value males, the scrotes, the negative-value males, all that stuff. I'm sorry I was away last week, but in case you're wondering how we're doing, we're making progress. So the episodes that we're covering today, episodes 72 and 73 of the Female Dating Strategy podcast. This first one, 72, is Myth-Busting the High-Value Male. It's very definitely of interest to us. And then the next one.
Hey, Queens, do you enjoy the female?
Oops. No. Patreon grab bag in the event that we do that. So as always, we're going to allow you to vote on whether or not we skip episodes, as always. But we're catching up. This one's from 7 months ago. So in no time, we're going to be caught up. And then we might have some sort of existential crisis, right? Because we're kind of just cruising along being like, oh, there's tons of episodes, but we might reach the end. And then I don't know. I don't know if we're going to have to move on to something else or what. I mean, we know that one of them's gone now. So, but we'll get there. We're going to get to the end. We started this with the goal of getting to the end and then maybe getting on the show. I don't know if that's a pipe dream still for me to get on the Female Dating Strategy podcast. But that is still the goal. As always, if you want to support the show, if you're listening to this and you want to get early access to the audio episodes because they only go up a week later. So you can sign up, patreon.com/lowvaluemail. And you get all sorts of other shit too. Get the Low Value Mail after show. You get early episodes of the Bathhouse, all stuff. Or locals. Lowvaluemail.locals.com. Or become a Scrote. Join the YouTube channel. All right. I don't think we have anything else that we need to get to here. We're, as always, going to be listening to this on 1 1/4 speed. I will say I'm... someone says, are we getting a certain famous Subway comedian as a special guest today? Nah, Leo's, we're not going to be seeing Leo. That's kind of the hope, is that we're not going to be seeing Leo. I don't think there's a good scenario where we see Leo. Not like I'm worried about Leo, but I'm just saying, like, if we see Leo, then it's probably going to be, like, again, in a bad thing. Someone says you'll have to skip back to the skipped episodes for a grand finale. How about fuck no? How about I'm not going to do that? Not skipping. We skipped those episodes because they need to be skipped. Most of them are just, they're talking about some TV show we never watched. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? I don't know if I'm at my wit's end with these queens. No, I love the queens. Love the queens. I'm sorry, queens, if you're watching. I would never forsake you. Okay, so episode 72. Welcome back, everybody. I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to be back here. Let's put it on 1 1/4 speed. This is a short episode too. See, that's the thing. It's like this episode's short. Like, are they kind of losing their passion for the show? These episodes used to be an hour and 20 minutes. Now this one's 46 minutes. That's it. Like I just feel like they're not in it anymore. They kind of figured out all the dating strategies that existed. I don't know, but it's a tragedy. It's not really a tragedy. I'm just mad because I had to bike here. Okay. Without further ado, episode 72. Welcome back to the Queens. Myth busting. The high value male. Let's go.
The meanest female-only podcast on the internet. I'm Ro.
What's up, Queens?
I'm Savannah.
And I'm Lilith.
And so today we wanted to start a new mini-series talking about the high-value man. So what is a high-value man? And the reason why I wanted to begin with this one is because what a high-value man is, it used to be, I guess to some extent it still is thought that the FDS version of a high-value man is a man who is 6'6", so a 6-inch dick, a 6-figure income, and over 6 feet in height. And that came from the subreddit where a user posted, she wrote a post about, like her own preferences and standards in a man, which is absolutely fine. But then I guess the mainstream took that away and they ran with it. And so it tends to be that people tend to conflate things such as having a big dick, having a high income, being good looking with being high value. And we just basically wanted to clear up the misconceptions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Perceptions around that and to actually state what being like a high value man actually is and what they look like.
That was like one person who said that, and then they're like, this is what everyone at FDS wants, right? They just treat women like a monolith.
I'm not even gay and I want that.
People did agree with her, but it wasn't ever anywhere, like it wasn't official FDS, 101 that they have to meet all that criteria to be high value.
Honestly, that was kicking around the manosphere for a very long time. That was how things like the red pill and other types of manosphere.
Oh yeah, as always, I'll give away channel membership at 100 likes. Smash those like buttons. Also, I'm going to put up the poll right now. But I'm not even putting up the poll. I'm vetoing the poll. I know I'm a man of the people. I'm a populist, but no poll for this one. We're listening to this one.
Dating jargon was used as that 666 was essentially to be a high value man. You had to have these types of characteristics because it would make women more sexually attracted to you, but it wasn't the canon definition of what a high value man was for FDS, although we don't standard shame. So if you want that, we don't tell you can't have that, right?
Yeah, I wanted to say, first of all, men will shame women.
They'll standard shame the shit out of men, though.
For our preferences for the whole 666 thing, as if we're supposed to be like, no, it's okay if you don't have a 6-inch dick. It's okay if you don't make that much money. It's okay if you're not that tall. I'll accept you anyways, kind of thing. I don't want to say, first of all, I embrace that. I actually fully embrace women who have that as a standard, and I won't apologize for that. It's not my standard, but if other women have that standard, I support that.
But what's funny about the 666 is that it brings out the Scrote mathematics. Then you get men doing all sorts of calculations to say
Scrote mathematics is pretty hilarious. I'll give it to them. That's maybe the actual first funny thing that Savannah said, even though I don't know if she maybe coined that term, but Scrote mathematics that's I'm naming the episode that right now.
6 feet.
Only 0.0463% of the population fits the standard.
It brings out the Scrote mathematics.
Scrote mathematics.
When they start saying shit like men over 6'4", 0.2% of the population.
Scrote mathematics.
The chances of you finding a high-value man with this set of standards, if you look like this, is less than getting struck by lightning. It's more likely to get eaten by a shark. Statistically speaking. They get so shrill about it.
That's what's
Did
funny
they
about
say
it. I also
they
want to
get
make
so
this
shrill
series
about
for
it?
the women who may not have a height standard. There are, women who don't care about height, and also the income standard as well. So I know, for example, in the UK, you don't actually need to earn 6 figures before you are very, very comfortable. It's actually quite a minority of people who earn that much. This is an actual Scrote mathematics. This is general statistics.
This is regular mathematics. This is Scrote mathematics.
Even still, you don't actually need to earn over 6 figures to have a very comfortable lifestyle. Now, I know that might be different depending on where you live. So if you're in a major city like London or New York or somewhere else, that might vary, but it's also just to show that being high value isn't necessarily what's on the surface. The clue is really in the name. It's a lot more about their values, which we'll go into.
Yeah, you can live a very...
It's what's on the inside that counts.
Very happy life at $50,000 a year. It depends on where you are. Yeah, not in Vancouver, no. In a small town outside of Vancouver, probably. For Vancouver, I'd say my minimum income requirement is $75K.
For me personally, I would always say I would just want the man to earn more than me, purely because if we ever decide to have children, because I'm still on the fence about it at the moment, so no, but possibly in the future, if I then go on maternity leave, then our income is going to be massively cut in half. So he should always be earning more to make up for that. That's just my opinion anyway.
No, I agree. Yeah.
And leading on to that as well. And so if we go back to what the FDS definition of what a high value man is, it's essentially a man with good values. Certain values, I would say, should be non-negotiable.
He has to add value to your life as well.
He has to add value to your life. Yeah. So on its face, a high value man is just what it sounds.
I mean, that's generally a good rule there, where the person, you'd like them to make your life better versus worse. People don't have that. A lot of people legitimately, their partner makes their life appreciably worse.
It's like it's quite literally a man who adds a lot of value to your life. And when we talk about the difference between a high value, a negative value, a zero value man, and a low value man, we're talking about like the different levels of benefit that they've
never actually really said zero value before. So that's new. That's 72 episodes in, and they mentioned zero. I don't know if that's a scrote, because for what I know, there's negative value, there's scrotes. Maybe scrotes is just a synonym for zero value. Then there's the low value, which is obviously more than zero. And then there's the high value man.
Bring to your life in a tangible, measurable way.
It basically, the only litmus test, basically, is your life better off with him in it? If the answer is no on any front, then he's not high value, in my opinion.
And that's factoring in both his actual contributions as well as opportunity cost, because every time you spend time with a man who's not up to par, you're actually costing yourself the ability to look for someone else.
Yeah,
That's
or if
true.
it's worse than just you single.
And that matters way more for women, too, because TikTok, if you know what I mean.
And it's worse than...
That thing also applies to men, too, but just there's ways around that more so than...
Your baseline of being single should be already pretty high, right? Like, that's the other thing is like, if your life is in the gutter and you're literally at rock bottom, then yeah, any man is going to seem high value compared to where you're at, right? So that's why we tell women.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously relative. Like, for you to be judging people when your life's a fucking shambles.
Also, you need to level up so that your baseline of being single is already pretty good. So
we got a super chat from Okie Native, says Kevin Samuels, R.I.P. would have made them cry. I'm surprised they never covered Kevin Samuels, to be honest. I am
that
shocked
when a man
about
comes
that.
along, he has to be better than your baseline to be high value.
And just off the back of that as well, I completely agree with what was just said, but also most importantly, he has to be better in isolation. So when I say that, I mean like some women will compare their current man with their previous relationships, but if all the previous relationships were low value, even though you think there might be an improvement there,
Look, if all your previous relationships were low value, lady, you're low value. I hate to break it to you.
still might be low value. So you have to look at him in isolation. You can't rationalize it by saying, my ex-partner beat me and this guy doesn't, therefore, he's better. You can't really look at it like that, especially if we acknowledge the fact that there is a pandemic of, low value men out there. The chances of a woman dating at least one in her lifetime is extremely high. You can't be comparing like shit to shit, basically. You have to look at each in isolation and make a judgment based on that. And so off the back of the values as well. So like Rose said,
Giving these ladies a lot of credit, huh? They are giving their listeners a lot of credit.
he has to add, tangible and also non-tangible value to your life as well. But even though we've said that certain aspects of a man, such as his income, to some degree his looks, because different strokes for different folks, are negotiable, there are certain values that should be non-negotiable in a high-value man. So things like being honest, things like being loyal, generous, kind, he doesn't watch porn, like all those sorts of things, they should be non-negotiable if a man is high value. I realise I'm setting the bar quite high here, to be honest. Well, actually not high.
Yeah, I do want to almost say that
Seems a little high, Savannah. Seems a
a
little
lot
on
of
the high
women will
side.
say that based on what we say a high value man is, that there's no such thing as a high value man, because like if we say a high value man is like honest and he doesn't watch porn, that alone is going to like eliminate probably like 99% of the male population. And I will say like high value men, first of all, it's like a spectrum. There's some men who are higher value than others. Even within the high value man, it's like there's some that are really high value that are like, and then some that are like medium high value, you know what I mean? Like, so I will say that like there
Medium
are
high
men
value.
who are high value. They do exist and they are rare, and there are men out there who are pretending to be high value, and so that's why it's important to be able to vet, but they do definitely exist.
Oh,
Also,
that's a tough one. The ones who are pretending to be high value.
frankly, like I think by saying like high value men don't exist or that they can exist, I think
We got it good, guys. Honestly, the more I listen to the chicks, what they have to deal with, I'm like, is this guy? And we're just like, she hot? All right.
that just sort of reinforces like male low qualityness. I feel like with men, I find that just in my day-to-day like personal interactions with men, when you set the bar high for men, most of the time they will jump. Some men will just stay on the ground. If they're just like, if they don't want to jump, they won't, kind of thing. I wouldn't say date a man based on potential, but if your standards are high and he's really into you, he'll work to meet those standards.
Yeah, agreed. I also think as well that, I guess, somewhat contrary to what is often believed, there is no like pocket that is teeming to the brim of high value men. I genuinely believe that they can be found anywhere, in any social class, in any tax bracket, across all heights. Maybe not for me because heights are negotiable, but even still. But for other women,
I mean, not in any tax bracket, because you already said that. That's one of the things.
Can be found anywhere as well. So when women, I guess, part of the reason also why I wanted to do this series is that sometimes when people are trying to figure out a dating strategy, we can perhaps
almost a female dating strategy
end up cutting off our options as opposed to expanding them. So even though this might be an unpopular opinion, but I even think that high value men can also be found on online dating as well. Yes, their filtering system.
That's an unpopular opinion?
It might be different and they will be a lot harder to find, but I still think it's possible to find a high value man online as well. So when you're looking for a high value man, if we accept the fact that yes, they are rare, but yes, they can also be found in a lot of places, even in places where you would think that there aren't any there at all. I think it's also important to keep an open mind where possible and not to inadvertently write an entire section or an entire hobby or an entire place off in terms of finding a high value man. Another thing as well that I wanted to tackle, because again, FDS gets this a lot in the sense that we ask a lot from men, but we expect him to have no standards as well, and that we just want a guy who will serve us for eternity and treat us like queens. I mean, some women might want that, in which case more power to them. They deserve it as well. But also, it's important to acknowledge that
do they deserve it?
A high value man will also have standards for themselves and for other people. And so if you think about it, for example, let's say you wanted to have an operation, you wouldn't trust a surgeon who just accepted anybody in terms of their pre-op testing, in terms of whether they are suitable for the surgery, for example. That would be a mark of a bad surgeon. So similarly, it sort of used to make me confused when on the subreddit we would see women saying that a high value man will just accept you just because. Like, they will also have their own standards.
Or they'll love you no matter what. No, that's not true. High value men have high standards too.
Yeah, they have high standards, and also the data doesn't support that. We know that, the entire trope that the millionaire marries the maid is just, like, by and large fantasy. Like, most men, they will marry...
No, the millionaire fucks the maid.
Women they deem to be on their level in terms of social class, in terms of education class, and even...
I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger literally banged the
to
maid.
some degree in terms of looks as well. So this idea that a high-value man is basically just a doormat who will just accept you because you're a woman, and again, it's also...
They just lost half their audience saying this shit.
It wasn't ever a philosophy that FDS ever pushed. It was perhaps a few people, and then it just became this whole, oh my gosh, FDS are queens who just want men to serve them and they've got nothing to offer. Completely ignoring the fact that we had a whole subreddit dedicated to leveling up, FDS level up as well, for that reason.
I feel like men who browse the subreddit, and this is partially why we don't have the subreddit anymore, is just because they take like random commenters who could be newbies or whatever and then take that as like FDS canon, but they're looking for things that make them angry already anyways, so they're kind of just looking for things that already confirm their pre-existing biases or suspicions or whatever, right? And so, I mean, the men who hate FDS, like, they don't want to understand us anyways. Like, I mean, if they understood FDS, honestly, like, they'd probably have to look at themselves a lot more critically, and they don't want to do that, right? They're just looking for an excuse to dismiss us, right? Women are just going to carry on having high standards anyways, and they can just die mad, so...
Die mad!
As well, though, it's also important to remember that the way, and we'll do probably a separate episode on this in the future, but the way you deal with a high value man isn't necessarily the same way that you deal with a low value man. Now, obviously, your standards and boundaries will be the same and you'll still vet them the same way, but the way you interact with a high value man, it has to be slightly different. I got the impression on the subreddit as well, when women were discussing like vetting strategies, that they wanted to treat all men the same. So strategies that worked on low value men, or like worked in quotation marks because the relationship always blew up because it was low value, they would try and use that on high value men, and that's not going to work, because if you are treating, I mean, generally speaking, women treat like low value men in a certain way, like generally speaking, and usually it's less than stellar because they are low value. If you then go and take those sorts of attitudes and behaviors to somebody who is high value, I understand where it's coming from. It can be a protection mechanism, it's a vetting strategy, but you also potentially run the risk of putting the kinds of men that you are seeking to attract, you may end up putting them off entirely as well. A good example is this
is like maybe 1 out of every 10 episodes where we actually get some dating strategy. That might be generous too. Okie Native says, when do we get the special Subway comedian guest? He ain't coming. That's the second person who has. Came
across in the subreddit where a user said she doesn't say thank you to men.
Okay, that's dumb. Like, that's how you get guys to do stuff for you, is by, oh my god.
But firstly, it's dumb, and also a high value
person. No, it's not. You bribe them with sex.
I think that's rude. Like, I would think it's rude. If I did something nice for a guy and he didn't say thank you, I would think you're just rude.
I don't know if that's like the rad femcel crowd, where they think like politically, if you ever do anything nice for a man, that you're like betraying. If you don't treat men like shit 24/7, you're a bad feminist. And so if you smile at a man, you're harming women as a class, and you're setting back women's liberation a full generation. Like that crowd. Yeah. So I want to say, first of all, that's dumb as fuck. Like, the way that you get men to do stuff for you, men will go to hell and back for you just for a few words of like positive reinforcement. Like, understand that most men,
guys don't want positive reinforcement. That's not what they're doing.
Even high value men can be quite lonely, actually,
and they don't get many compliments either at all.
Yeah, men in general don't get a lot of compliments. They don't get a lot of like positive reinforcement.
So what you want to do is weaponize that to its fullest potential.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Like,
honestly.
People think I just go around verbally abusing men all the time. That's not true at all, actually. Like, the men that I know in real life, they think I'm very nice. I use very strategic flattery. I like find out what they're insecure about. I find out what makes them feel like a man, and I give...
Chick's fucking diabolical. What if she finds out what you're insecure about? Well, it's the guys who's short, and she goes, "Oh, you're so tall. Looking tall today." And these guys are stupid. They're like, "What are you up to?"
Flattery and corrections based on their deepest insecurities. Maybe this makes me a bad feminist, but yeah, like sometimes I'll just like say things that, you know, just flattery that like, I'm trying to think of an example that won't get me dragged, but like basically like, yeah, like, "Oh my gosh, you're such a big strong man," kind of thing. "Oh my gosh, you're so
shut up." Literally any guy you say that, they're like, "What are you up to?"
strong," like that kind of stuff. Like the guys lifting shit for me, like they will remember that compliment for like years kind of thing, right? Like that'll be something that they think about anytime they're feeling sad.
Guys, can we confirm yes or no? I feel like, I don't know. No, I don't think I would remember it I'm not so pathetic that would stick with me for years when I'm clearly getting manipulated into helping this person do manual labor.
You can be basically like the valve on their self-esteem. Men will do anything for you.
That's also why you should
Not
ask men
for you. They want that poontang.
do stuff for you as well. They love that shit.
Self-esteem comes from esteemable acts, and so if you ask men to do stuff for you and praise them for it, you're giving them good self-esteem. So actually, you're doing a really good thing for them.
And you're getting something out of it as well.
Yeah, and if they act really arrogantly or really poorly, then you know what you're dealing with. It's actually a vetting strategy as well. Tell the difference between a man who I give a compliment to who's like sincerely appreciative or at least like acknowledges it, and then like super arrogant, full of themselves men who are so insecure they can't ever show that anything you say has an effect on them, even if it's positive. Those are men you want to immediately get out of your life.
On the flip side to that as well, if a guy is always like fishing for compliments and just generally just being like annoyingly excessive,
Constantly seeking praise, that's also weird, yeah.
yeah, it's also a red flag. Yeah.
Yeah, if he's very emotionally needy and constantly fishing for compliments, that's also, I mean, those men have their place. They can also still be useful, but
Everything's a red flag.
I probably wouldn't date them. There are some men that just like go through life trying to be stoic and shit, and then like you give them a compliment and they're just like, oh, like they'll have a moment of kind of like, oh, that felt good. Like, oh my god, someone said something nice to me, and they kind of don't know how to react for a second.
For some reason, I got a visual of Will Ferrell in Elf just now, just like discovering everything new.
Like, a pretty girl smiles at them and says something nice to them. Like, men will remember that shit forever, okay? They love that. And again, like, this is something that I feel like the black pill community would drag the fuck out of me for, because, oh my god, you did something nice for a man. It means you hate women. Like,
no, you just have to be strategic. Yeah, be strategic.
Touch grass, literally go outside. Interact with people, yeah.
Just being a jerk all the time. Well, I almost want to give them like that old school book, like How to Win Friends and Influence People. I mean, that's just very basic 101 and like people skills.
It's basic social skills.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so when your feminism conflicts with basic people skills.
Yeah, it's not going to be very effective, and that's part of the problem.
It's not going to be good for you, and it's not actually going to challenge the dominant value system as well.
It's easy to dismiss then.
Guys don't give a shit about fucking compliments.
And it sucks, but it's true.
Yeah, and also, it will also upskill the entire class as well. If other men see, men who treat women well getting everything that they wanted, then either they will try to step up and be like those men, because men, they do look at what other men are doing, or they won't, and they will just crash out of the gene pool. So it's a win-win, even for men.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to follow up with my, complimenting men thing. I also wanted to say actually that most men are so attention starved. They rarely receive positive attention. I think a lot of men have a maladaptive coping mechanism where even negative attention is still seen as attention to them. And so, ladies, if you're trying to influence men, I would say don't negatively reinforce things that you don't like. I would just say it's like training a dog, just ignore the behavior that you don't like and positively reinforce the behavior that you do like. Because if you negatively reinforce things, it might actually create a weird feedback again, because they're so attention starved that they'll do the bad thing over and over and over again to try to get more negative attention. The worst thing you can do to men is just ignore him, honestly.
Every toxic relationship I was in.
Oh, I mean, are you kidding me? That's my dream, is to just be ignored.
I had to admit that I would engage with the negative shit. And so what Liv is saying is spot on. You have to disengage completely with any type of negative behavior.
Gray rock that shit.
Not even gray rock, but just literally be above it, because otherwise they'll kind of suck you into that negative power dynamic.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's really, really unhealthy. And that's when you start to get into how sometimes women react poorly because of reactive abuse, etc. You have to practice not reacting to men's poor behavior. At minimum, don't react. If you can poke holes in whatever nonsense they're doing to give them a little bit of self-awareness, if they're repeatedly doing that, then jump ship, abandon ship.
Yeah, if you really want to twist the knife, could roll your eyes and maybe laugh at him a little bit and just dismiss him. Just be very dismissive at most. That's the most interaction you want. Just make him feel like a little wounded little boy in that moment. And, that's the only negative emotional reaction that might actually cause them to not do that. But again, you mainly just have to ignore them.
It's just ultimately classical conditioning, ultimately.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think honestly, as women, our feminist activism needs to contain at least some, I feel, of like conditioning, of like, this is leadership actually, is just positively reinforcing the behavior that you like and then correcting or ignoring the behavior that you don't like. That's how you influence people to do what you want. And if we're going to change anything as feminists, I don't think changing men like as a class is possible, but a few individual men and rewarding good behavior is something that we can do.
Yeah, agreed. And so in terms of other values, and I think that
sounds like a dog training podcast.
Women fall into this trap of they have to be the mirror image of a high value man. So, if their idea of a high value man is, say, let's say he's a bodybuilder, they have to be super fit. If he enjoys things like, for example, gaming, there's a difference between being a Kuma gamer and just playing with games, by the way. So I'm referring to the latter, not the former, that they have to be super into it as well. And I actually think it's actually quite nice and perhaps healthy to have some hobbies or interests that you don't share, like necessarily with your partner, because firstly, it's like you don't have to find your mirror image in a partner to have a happy relationship, and perhaps most importantly, secondly, is that if you have interests or hobbies that your partner doesn't share with you, that will also encourage you to share them with other people, so you can start to build that village of people who do share your interests or some of your interests and hobbies, as opposed to just relying completely on their partner and their circle of friends. Because I've come across so many women who, let's say they're both into gaming, and obviously gaming is a very, very male dominated field. This is just an example, and they'll come to find that all their friends are their partner's friends. And as we've spoken about in previous episode, where we said that if all your friends are sort of in the same friend group as your partner, you have no friends, and it's problematic. And also women as well, you don't have to necessarily strike yourself out just because you're not the mirror image of your idea of a high value man. So let's say if you want
guys do this, have these hobbies to get away from women. They don't want to be like, oh, I wish we all had the same hobbies.
And who is super fit, you don't necessarily have to be that yourself.
Yeah, there's actually this TikTok couple where there's, I can't remember their name, but it's
Alicia McCorville. Alicia, I saw that one. Is that the one where
where the guy's like a bodybuilder and she's overweight, but they still lift weights together? Yeah, she still lifts, by the way, but she's just happens to be also overweight. And so, oh my god, they're such a cute couple, but they get so much hate and it's so mean. But there are some guys where they'll be fit for themselves because that's just the aesthetic they like on themselves, and they just are attracted to curvier women. And there are some men who are the opposite, fetish, who are doughy themselves and they like women who are fit. We make fun of them all the time.
Oh come on, that's like most of the men with dad bods. Let's be real.
It's not exactly the same thing.
Let's be real, right? So I want to say, just because men can have that kind of audacity, I want to be like, ladies, you are entitled to have that kind of audacity too. It does not matter what you look like. You're allowed to have your standards.
I'm so tired of the body positivity movement being focused on all women are beautiful. It's who cares if you're beautiful or not? You should still have standards for.
You're all beautiful queens.
Men. Not being attractive has never not once stopped a man from making demands of women. Period. Right?
Yes. So, thank you, bro. Thank you.
Just make demands just because you exist and you have a right to look at things that are pleasing to your eyes.
Yes, exactly.
And it goes beyond looks as well. Exactly. Even things like women just feel like I have to have my shit together. I have to be in my dream career. I have to have my own house. And obviously if you want to do that personally, that's fine. I think it also feeds the narrative that women, they have to bring, for example, more to the table in quotation marks to even get a look in from men or even from a high value man. And that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, I want to say actually, men often say, they'll frame this in a very anti-woman way. They'll be like, men don't want women who want careers. A man who's career oriented, he wants a stay-at-home wife. He doesn't want a career woman, yada 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 kind of thing. But I will say though that most men actually who are wealthy themselves, they do want a woman within the same social class as them most of the time. I find that there are a lot of men where they just want a woman that they can be happy with, and they don't really
it's easier to, I guess, relate to on a level.
Care if high value men do admire women who are ambitious and have goals and interests and hobbies and stuff, but they don't necessarily expect the woman to be at or above him. If he's a doctor, he'll be happy with a woman who's in med school, or someone who's a nurse or something like that, right? Different men like different things as well, right? So not all men like the exact same thing. Some men actually do want a woman who's really career oriented and boss babe kind of thing, right? And some men are not as into that.
It just depends on the lifestyle that you want. Babe. And so I'm very much encouraging people to be honest about how they want to live, how they want their day-to-day to be. Just think about and go through your day about how do you want to have your relationship structured. And so when you're thinking about that, that's when it starts to become more obvious about okay, what does my partner need to have in order for me to have the relationship that I want? And when it comes to things like status, et cetera, obviously if you want to take time off and be a stay-at-home mom, then it's more important to date a guy who has more finances or who can take care of you on a single income, right? More so than someone else who's no, I like my career, I may or may not have kids. And even if I do have kids, I probably won't want to do the stay-at-home mom something, then it probably matters less. We'll never tell you to date a bum by any means, but like, it's just a more or less weighing what you want and a complex set of factors about what you want, and then seeing how you can find a man who fits in with your lifestyle. And I think men are somewhat like that too. They're unfortunately just socialized to always see women as a support role in their life. And so they're very, very like utilitarian.
They are nurturers.
And when it comes to how they look at women's roles in their life, and it can be very, very oppressive. And basically I'm thinking that like every woman's supposed to structure their entire life around them rather than figuring out like finding women whose life is more compatible with theirs. But I think what FDS is trying to do is change the narrative so that women are thinking very strategically about what they want and then what their partner has to have, and like what kind of value can that man bring to your life that would actually be really beneficial to you.
Yeah, what do you actually want, and not do you feel like you have to fit into society's like script of how your life is supposed to be?
Yeah, and also,
what the fuck are they even talking about?
What also prevents women from being honest about what they want is, it sort of, goes back to basically the crux of FDS is that they also believe that it's unattainable as well. So that's why they convince themselves that they want a certain type of man, I guess the generic man that society says is good for them.
It might be unattainable to them.
Opposed to really, really thinking about what it is that they want.
Yeah, I think women lower their standards way too much because society always pressures us to settle in things that are actually extremely important.
Society doesn't pressure you to settle. Biology does.
Happiness, and then women spend a lot of their relationships being miserable. Men don't like have the same problem, right? And like I think that's entirely not fair.
Men are not told to lower their standards to find a wife, right? Like they're told like, no, yeah, she's supposed to cook for you and clean for you, do this kind of thing. Like,
and even if they do like lower their standards, if she so much as puts a hair out of line, it's almost carte blanche. Like
I'll be right back. I've returned. Sorry, I had to go blow my nose. Okay.
Go and cheat, or they use that to justify seeing prostitute.
Yeah.
Do you guys think I just had enough? I go, you know what? Fuck this. I'm done with this. You just
will end up settling by the time they hit their like 30s, late 30s. Like they start to feel that like, oh, I want someone to like be my female caretaker kind of thing. And so they'll just take any woman that will like put up with him in the moment, but they'll always keep one foot out the door.
No, I think guys are just better at settling. Guys do the math better, and they go like, I think they kind of figure out like they go, yeah, I like her. Obviously, yeah, there has to be some sort of connection there. But you go, yeah. I mean, that's like a trap. Like, there's some people probably are on that thing where they're like, you know what, I could do better than this. And then you're like, that's no way to live your life.
Sure. Like, they'll always, be open to their dream woman kind of thing.
And they'll be doing that till their deathbed, so count on it.
Yeah.
I will say that I will share quite a personal story. So when I was about 17, 18, I can't remember the name of the book for the life of me. I read
What is the name of that politician who shot himself on camera? Everybody's saying they thought I'm going to go kill myself.
Really, really good romance novel, like really, really good one. And it was like my first and only, well, not my first and only, but one of the few parasocial relationships that I've developed with a literary character. And then about...
What the fuck did she just say? She had a parasocial relationship with a literary character. All right, we're going to have to back this up a little bit. Sorry.
Yeah.
I will say that I will share quite a personal story. So when I was about 17, 18, I can't remember the name of the book for the life of me. I read a really, really good romance novel, like really, really good one. And it was like my first and only, well, not my first and only, but one of the few parasocial relationships that I've developed with a...
Not the first.
Literary character. And then about years later, I met my partner, and I remember just thinking that you were exactly like that person in the book. It actually creeped me out so much.
Ooh, that's cute.
Because
so she fell in love with a character in a book and then found that person in real life?
Speak the same. They even had like the same name. I'm just like, what the fuck is this? And I think he was a bit like, he wasn't weirded out, but he was actually flattered when I told him like, you're actually like this character in the book. He was so flattered by that. He just isn't as rich, but never mind. But yeah, so it just goes to show that you can actually have somebody who is like a fantasy in real life.
Yeah, honestly, your fantasy man can exist in real life.
And are you still together?
And basically, don't let your shitty, low-value
it doesn't sound like
Scrote boyfriend get in the way of finding your dream man, okay? Like, first of all, like, you shouldn't have
It's not a dream man. It doesn't, like, the way she's talked about it seems like they're not together.
Boyfriend that's, like, a good enough for now boyfriend. If you feel like, oh, he's just a temporary boyfriend, you should probably just break up with him.
It's that opportunity cost, isn't it? Like, every second you spend with a scrote is, like, less time you could be spending with a guy that you actually want to be with and who'll treat you well.
Yeah, never settle, ladies. Eyes on the prize, okay? Like, never take your eyes off.
Never settle. Bad advice.
The eyes off the ball. Also, I just wanted to add that, like, I think, people think that it's, like, weird or unreasonable for women at FDS to want a man that, like, adds value to our life. I don't know. How do I explain this? Like, it's never been a question that, like, a wife or a woman in a man's life should add value to his life or make his life easier. Like most men will get a wife because they want someone to be like their caretaker, someone to like cook and clean for them, make their life easier, right?
Their mommy bang maid.
Their mommy bang maid, right? It's seen as a given that like it's normal for men to expect their partner to make their life easier. In fact, like that's the whole reason why a lot of men will get into relationships, is to have that like life facilitator kind of role, right? It's never been an expectation placed on
I don't know if that's true.
men that they are supposed to make their partner's life better.
Exactly. That's the craziest shit to me. And even in like really, really patriarchal cultures, it's
It's
rudimentary
mommy McBang maid.
at best, and it's lip service about a man's role, right? And cultures where the man has like a role to like provide for his family, it's very, very limited, and it comes with so many restrictions and like honestly,
And so many like costs, like, right? Like, yeah, the man provides for his family, but he is the sole decision maker on all matters relating to like the family or finance and stuff.
eats the big piece of chicken, sits at the head of the table, like makes all the decisions, and it's like the fuck.
It comes with so many benefits, right?
Yeah.
It's also, those sorts of, societal structures, for it to work, the women have to be at the very, very bottom. So in places where, what Rose said is the most extreme, women have virtually no rights. So of course, like a shit sandwich is going to taste good if you've been starving for 18
Where do women have no rights?
years. Like it doesn't actually improve their life even on any level. It's just, do you know what I mean?
It's just less abusive than their previous situation. Yeah.
Exactly. If you're so used to having nothing, then something is going to be seen as an improvement, even if that something is a literal shit sandwich.
Yeah. So I feel like women, have never been raised with the expectation that they should add value to the woman's life. I feel like women have also had that same socialization of feeling like it's unreasonable for us to want a man who adds value to our life, or that women who do want that are like gold diggers, they're greedy bitches, like, they're
adding value. You're talking about now just monetarily.
Selfish, they're evil FDS witches, like kind of thing, or
some people can just make you a better person. It doesn't have to necessarily include money.
It's even seen as like abusive for women to want a man to do things for them. I don't know, like they think like, oh, you'd have to abuse a man into treating you that well or something like that, right? Which is not true.
There was a really profound straw poll that was done on the subreddit, and you can read the results on the website as well. It was one of the few occasions where the moderators actually allowed men to speak, and the question pitched to them was basically, so what value do you add to a woman's life? And the number of men that couldn't even answer the question, or they would say things like men built society even though they had fuck all to do with it, was actually astonishing.
Okay, you didn't build society. I love how they take credit for other great men, right? It's always like, men did this. Did you do that?
And other great women as well. Other great women.
Yeah.
And men won't even let women take credit for women's own ideas, right? But men will take credit for other men's ideas, right? We've always said, like, yeah, if it's one woman who's bad, all women are gold diggers. But if it's one man who did something good, men built society, right?
But it's like, you're a knee.
Yeah, definitely. There's no sort of thing where men are bad. We're not.
It's always the neats that are saying that, like, you're contributing nothing to society.
Or they'll say something like, oh, I open jars or whatever, right? It's like, okay, we'll get a jar opener, okay? Like, you don't even need a jar opener, ladies. Like, just do some forearm exercises. Like, train your forearms so that you don't even need a man to open jars.
Do some forearm exercises. Yeah, but they don't.
For you.
Or they'll say stuff like, I protect my wife. And it's like, who are you protecting her from, though? Other men. It's not women and children you're protecting her from. It's other men. So that doesn't really count. That's almost like you're trying to run a protection racket where you say that your protection is needed, but you're part of the problem.
That's fucking dark. That is real dark. If you're like, yeah, we're protecting you from the other men who are, we're all in cahoots with them.
It's protecting from.
That's exactly it. Like, men's protection is like a mafia racketeering thing. It's like they create the problem and then offer themselves up as the solution to it.
Textbook Massimo.
What?
Exactly, right? Like, so I'll protect you from myself. And then also men's protection is very conditional. Men's protection is also very conditional. Like,
why is that funny?
There have been so many times in relationships where a man, and this is pre-FDS, by the way, where like a guy would like withdraw the protective things that he did if he was like mad at me or something. Like, for example, like he used to walk me home at night or, make sure that I got home safe or something. And then like if we got in an argument or something, he'd like leave the restaurant and then like expect me to get home like by myself or something, right? Like, so understand.
And I'm sure you were totally guiltless in that scenario. I'm sure you had nothing to do with it.
Like, men's quote unquote protection comes with a lot of control, and it's very conditional and on like you behave.
Look, you're in fucking Vancouver. You can hop in an Uber and get home. It's like you act like you're like, where were you?
In a certain way, and the moment you stop behaving that way, that protection will be withdrawn. But in general, men should add value to your life in like a financial, emotional, support, everything kind of way, right? And it's not unreasonable to want a man to make your life easier. That's what men expect from women all the time.
I think I remember the post you're talking about.
Guys expect women to make their lives easier?
I have no clue why women even bother. It was the post, right? And it was a post about like us asking men what value they bring to women and them not having a clue as to what it is, like just not being able to describe it whatsoever. And I'm like, this is a problem.
Can we link that in the show notes? Like,
yeah, I'll see if I can find it on the website. And there was another viral tweet thread that was very similar to that, with a lot of men realizing like, oh, this is the first generation of men who have actually had to make themselves likable to women because they can't just get women on a curve anymore because we are financially dependent on them. And a lot of guys are failing. Like they don't have the first or foggiest clue how to actually be attractive to women. And in that gap of understanding, the manosphere just kind of rose up. And the manosphere was bound to happen anyways because each generation comes with this new, they rediscover patriarchy and misogyny, and every single generation of men thinks it's something new and novel, but it's just a system of oppression to women. But the way the manosphere took
shout out to the patriarchy
off is in that gap and in that vacuum between what they felt or what they were told was attractive to women, or like what they said they were going to get, or the entitlement they felt to women based on the standards that their fathers and grandfathers had because women didn't have any rights back then, and then what they're actually getting right now. And they're pissed the fuck off. But it's like saying like you're mad because slavery ended, right? Like none of us care, right? Like none of us care that like you
I care.
Can't get a woman now because you're not actually attractive to women.
or I see a lot of guys.
I actually was reading this this thing where back during slavery, actually in America, there were some free like black people or whatever, and then they would buy their wives, so their wives would legally be their slaves, and then some of them were like just kind of had enough with the wife and then just sold her off. And you're like, sorry, it's just business.
Complaining that like the amount of effort that it takes to get a woman isn't even worth it anymore because the women don't cook or clean for you, they don't serve you, they don't submit to you anymore. Like, why would I do all this work of becoming a fully well-rounded human being with good people skills and all this and do all this stuff just to get a woman who won't even serve me? And it's like, okay, then don't have a family. Honestly, men like that, I don't want them to have partners or families because children learn by modeling their parents' behavior. Men like that, I don't want them to have any influence on the next generation in any capacity, right? So I actually think it's a good thing that those sorts of men are just giving up on relationships and are just choosing not to pursue women anymore. So good for them. I agree. A lot of men are unfortunately just not going to be able to adapt to the new reality of like, a partner is supposed to be someone that you know, that is, it's a partnership, not like a master-slave relationship. A lot of men just aren't cut out for that.
Yeah. And again, I think that is where a high value man will be different in that they will see their partner or their woman as somebody who is a fully realized human being, and he will know what he has to offer as well and what she has to offer. It wouldn't just be a case of, you know, him just saying, because I'm a man, then I deserve all of this, or because I'm a man, I deserve basically a slave. Like, he'll also know what he has to offer as well. And, you know, questions like, also, what do women bring to the table? It won't even come out of his mouth because he'll understand the value of what women bring to his life as well.
Childbirth.
He'll understand that women have inherent value. Like, a lot of these guys who are like, oh, what do these women bring to the table? It's like they're misogynistic. They don't see women as valuable unless they fit a very specific role in their life. Yeah, as like Mommy McBang made. And even then, like, they don't value those women, by the way. Even the women who do serve them, they don't value that, right? So obviously they're going to be like, oh, well, what do they bring to the table? Again, they don't value women, right? So no point in trying to have a relationship with them.
Women.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so moving on to the final section of this episode, and we just want to briefly touch on, so how can you find a high value man? And I would actually say, like, you know, this is where it might pay to try to expand your high value friendships as well. Because a lot of the high value relationships that I know in real life, or the high value people I know who are in relationships, they actually met through friends of another friend. So like at a party or a wedding or that sort of event as well. So they did actually meet in person. And even if, you know, say you come across a guy who is high value, but you're not compatible, because that can also be another connection that you know, in case he might have high value friends that you are compatible with. I don't necessarily believe that just because you're not compatible with a man, that automatically makes him low value. Like, you can be incompatible with high value men as well, and they're still useful to keep around as well. So
what kind of
win-win. You can also meet them at work, but I would be careful about workplace relationships, especially if you are a woman, because tread carefully.
Especially if you're a woman. No, especially if you're a guy. You ever heard of this thing called the fucking Me Too movement, where a bunch of guys who are getting a little grabby at work or just straight up had consensual relationships at work had their entire lives fucking destroyed? Yeah, God, this is a lesson for the guys. No workplace relationships.
With that one, I would say. And preferably, you would start a relationship maybe once either one of you have left the company or transferred to a different department. You wouldn't be having a relationship like, you know, whilst you're both active or highly active in the organization. Even if the relationship is fine, but people...
I mean, again, it's fine for women to do it. They don't get in trouble the same way guys do, but guys, you're risking it.
Gossip, like one of my old jobs, they used to call it like incest college because so many people were like either dating or shagging somebody else. And...
Jeez.
It wasn't that pleasant because then their relationship became like the source of gossip, and that's not really what you want. So just watch out for that as well. Online dating. Now, this one will be controversial, but I personally think it is possible to find a high value man online dating. We did a good episode on OkCupid, which you might want to listen to if you want some further, tips and advice on how to use dating apps in your favor. But for me, the best method is to mix in real life like meetings, so trying to meet people in real life, and online dating. I don't think, especially for a woman, online dating doesn't have to take up loads and loads of your time. Like, I'm not quite fully understanding women who say that it takes up so much time. Like, I would, like, when I was actively dating or looking around, I would maybe swipe for maybe 5 minutes, because if you have your standards and boundaries in place, it makes it much quicker to eliminate the men who will waste your time or who you're not compatible with. Like, before you
Maybe Savannah does have someone, or she's just overdated.
got to a conversation.
Yeah, like, what do you mean you're spending a lot of time on online dating? It's like,
I personally don't get it, personally, but...
Are you typing paragraphs to these men? Are you typing out a huge novel in your bio? You shouldn't be doing either of those, right? Low effort online dating queen here, but...
Yeah, like pre-screen when you're swiping for all of the values-based questions that you want, then do like a Skype meeting so you're not having to drive all the way out to meet them anywhere. Just give it like 15, 20 minutes, make sure they're not a weirdo, have a phone call with them, and, you know, just do basic questions, and then go ahead and go on a date if you like the guy. But yeah, you almost have to have a funnel system.
Yeah, 100%.
Where I feel like some women, like, they just keep going on these like coffee dates, and like that can lead very quickly to exhaustion because some of these guys are crazy, right? And also, like, if you're still having to make an effort or create like a sense of intimacy by meeting this guy, when you don't want to do that, you want to cut them off from the beginning if it's not going to go anywhere. And I think too many women invest too much in these guys up front without doing all that groundwork to cut them, like, weed the men out really, really carefully before you actually go on a date.
Yeah, and even when you are dating as well, there are ways to minimize the time investment on your part. So when I was dating initially, like dating my partner, I would put him in the middle of the day, like say between 12
she does
and 1
have a
o'clock.
partner.
So you've got actually 1 hour, and that's it. And then I'd have
This is like the first time she's referenced it.
meetings before and after. So it wasn't a huge investment of my time, but it was long enough to, you know, to vet. So we didn't do dinners or like coffees out until I guess I felt comfortable that I would enjoy his company. But an hour in a day, especially if you work remotely, you can easily fit that in.
I should have said this earlier. The dating app you're doing this on really, really matters. Like, I would waste my time on Tinder for that matter, because I can see with Tinder, there's virtually no way for you to narrow down the type of men that you want to talk to. So like, you will be doing a shit ton of swiping and a shit ton of asking very basic questions. That's really, really exhausting. I would try to go towards the apps that give you more information up front so that you can make your decision up front. I think a lot of the women that are Tinderellas are probably the most exhausted.
Yeah, to be fair, even Facebook dating allows you to filter based on like smoking status, their height, if they want children or not, if they're religious. Even Facebook dating allows you to do that. So that will save you also a lot of time. Yes, men can lie, but again, at least if you've, you know, filtered out the people who don't meet your criteria, it's a lot more likely that you'll meet someone who does, as opposed to it being like a Tinder freefall where if you're a woman and a man, they'll just try and get you to match.
Is Facebook dating still around?
It's still around, yeah.
I honestly was like, did I hear that correctly? Facebook dating? People are dating on. I've seen it, but I'm like, people actually using that shit?
Yeah, just curious. Never used it. Sorry.
Yeah, I briefly used it. It wasn't great, but you can filter on certain characteristics and belief systems. So I guess in that regard, it's better than like Tinder. And just to keep an open mind above all else, like we've previously said, I think it's possible to find like a high value man anywhere across all, I guess, social classes and tax brackets. That's not to say that women should date somebody outside of what they want, but they are out there. And unfortunately, there isn't a foolproof tip that will land you with a high value man, because an element of this as well, after having spoken to people I know who are in good relationships, an element of it is luck at the same time, and sometimes just being in the right place at the right time, or having like, you know, the right connections at the right time can lead to that as well. So there is an element that you can't necessarily control, but in terms of the ones that you can, it's, you know, really, really worth investing in things like, you know, your social and professional circles, in your work to some degree, and keeping an open mind as well. Like that will all pay dividends regardless of whether or not you find a high value man, in my opinion.
Ultimately, like, people criticize like, oh, FDS, they spend so much time like looking for a man kind of thing. But honestly, all of these things that it takes to quote unquote find a high value man, you're investing in yourself and you're improving your quality of life in the process. Like the things that it takes to find a high value man, I don't know, get higher value friends, you know, talk to more people, improve your social skills. Those are things that are going to help you with work and in your personal life as well, right? Not just in dating. Yeah, it's not just about getting a man. It's about improving your overall quality of life, including your romantic.
Just improve yourself. That's the just.
I guess as well the reason why I'll just be open and honest here as well. But the reason why I'm so optimistic about finding like high value men anywhere is that I found my partner on Reddit of all like healthy.
What? You found a high value man on Reddit of all places?
Of all places, yeah.
So just putting that out there.
You're lucky. You honestly, I think you manifested him by reading that book.
You struck gold. You literally found a needle in a haystack.
Yeah, sometimes I'm just like, it's actually kind of like weird how like similar they are. I just found on Reddit of all places, but he's not like a hardcore Redditor, but yeah.
Yeah, just a casual Reddit user. Aw, that's cute.
What? How the fuck do you meet a person on Reddit? That is...
But yeah, let us know what you think. I mean, you know, what do you think a high value man looks like? Like, let us know in the comment, actually, and let me say that again. And so, let us know what you think about the episode.
20 more likes and I'll give away another channel membership.
And your thoughts on what makes a high value man in the comments. We would love to read them.
Yes. So that's our show. Check us out on Patreon for bonus content, and you can speak to us on the Discord about this episode and more.
All right. That was episode 72 of the Female Dating Strategy podcast. The next one we have coming up is the Patreon grab bag. This is episode 73. They're getting kind of lazy with this, by the way. So they're just they're using their Patreon episodes as their main episodes, which seems like you probably should not be allowed to do that. But they are. I apologize. I don't know if it was just biking over here in the cold, but now I have a bit of a runny nose. So apologize for that. That must be just absolutely obnoxious to listen to, but there's nothing we can do about that. Okay. Episode 73. Coming up. People saying skip. This one I will actually put the poll up. Do we want to skip every 73? Skip 73. Yes or no? All right. The community has been asked. In the meantime, we will fire this bad boy up. Episode 73 of the Female Dating Strategy podcast, which is actually just their Patreon grab bag. Bible porn, Fozzie Bear, and more. Oh, let me just put it on 1 1/4 speed. I was watching the chat. Some of you are listening on 2.5 speed, double speed, which of 1 1/4 would be 2.5. That is, I could not fucking do that. Okay.
Enjoy the Female Dating Strategy podcast, then check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/the Female Dating Strategy for extra bonus content, exclusive merchandise, a Discord where you can talk to us directly, and our newly launched feature, which is the twice monthly war room on the Queen tier, where our patrons can voice chat with us, the podcast
Monthly war room?
host, as well as the other members, and we'll talk through your dating questions and life issues live and give you the most ruthless strategic advice that we can come up with. So check us out on patreon.com/the Female Dating
They
Strategy.
have a live war room.
We've also launched a weekly newsletter. You can sign up for the newsletter on our website, thefemaledatingsstrategy.com. So lots of exciting things being launched right now. I hope you like it, and we appreciate your support. So check us out. Let's start the show. What's up, Queens? Welcome to the Female Dating Strategy podcast, the meanest female-only podcast on the internet. I'm Ro.
I'm Savannah.
And I'm Lilith.
So, once again, this week's episode is a roast to Scrote bonanza.
Woo!
And dating questions, for that matter. These are all questions/comments/stories that have been submitted by our Patreon subscribers, which we are going to read to you and give feedback and roast the ever-loving fuck out of anybody who deserves.
Because there's some weird feedback we've gotten that wasn't like, it's not a dating question, it's not a queen shit, it's not a roast to Scrote, but we just want to talk about it. So let's jump right in.
Let's get right to it. So our very first roast to Scrote comes from Kit. And she writes, a quick roast to Scrote as a reminder to never ignore trusting your gut and definitely don't trust a Scrote. This took place years ago when I worked as a receptionist at a car dealership. I was 22 and freshly single out of a terrible relationship I'd been in since I was 17. So I was timid about dating someone new, but pretty excited about being an adult in the dating world. Yeah, no, she's like, I'm excited about being an adult in the dating world.
God, no.
There was your first mistake.
Man, honestly, to be young and optimistic, I'm still in my 20s, so I'm still young, but like still, like to be 22 and optimistic is like, yeah, I miss those days.
Because it makes you feel like you're a grown-up finally when you feel like, okay, I'm in my 20s, I'm going to be out in the town, you're free from your parents, so I get it. It's like a coming of age. So she writes next. So I had my scrotation going on before I knew to call it a scrotation. Okay, queen. So she already came out the gate,
right.
With a clue here, ahead of the game. One guy I was interested in was my coworker with blue eyes and a very confident attitude. This was mistake number one. He was a salesman, so of course he was charming, charismatic, and funny. Lilith, do you have something to add to that?
I will say, all the guys that I've worked with in sales, I always used to say, like, I'm never going to date another guy in sales because all of these motherfuckers are, like, manipulative. They're liars. They all cheat. So many guys in my office, like, cheat on their wives, like, openly at work. It's just very, like, fucked up. So I'm like, I would never date another guy who works in sales. But my boyfriend literally has, like, the same, like, we met when we had the same job. And so my boyfriend works in sales. And, I mean, he's fine. There's, like, some of them are okay, but most of them are trash.
Fine?
So
Your boyfriend is fine?
This man already at the beginning of the story.
He hung around the showroom floor while waiting for a customer to come in and would frequently hang out around my desk. We would flirt, but nothing too over the line. Just some back and forth, playful picking on each other and having inside jokes about work.
Okay, so far, like, that's pretty normal, actually.
I was interested, but found out from another coworker that he had a girlfriend he'd never mentioned to me before. Okay, time out.
Okay, that's a red flag. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, is that a red flag?
I just had a discussion not even a day ago about a coworker who had a girlfriend for a while that I knew him. I was not interested in him whatsoever. In fact, I thought he was closeted. I thought he was actually gay. So I didn't press because I was like, well, he's probably not talking about his personal life when other people do because he's got like, maybe he's not comfortable coming out. Turns out he had like a whole girlfriend. And not only did he have a girlfriend, like he was actively abusive towards her. And it caused a bunch of a bunch of drama like in my social circle later. So, but this is a person I met at work. So like, it's kind of wild. Like somebody will work with you for years. And if they don't want you to know they have a significant other, you won't know. It's just odd.
That's another thing I've always found very weird is like most of the guys at work that I know that are married, I don't know that they're married from them. Like whenever we have conversations, I know that they're married, but they don't know that I know that they're married. I'll find out from other people, but like they'll still frame conversations like, oh, on the weekend I went to go do this event with my friends, and like, it's like his wife and his kid, right? But like they'll frame.
I mean, you can be friends with your wife and your kids. That's kind of the goal, isn't it?
Stories in a way to like leave out the fact that they're married, right?
Which is wild, right? Like you have to start that from the beginning. From like the first day you work there, you have to plan to never tell anybody about your wife or girlfriend.
Or like I'm the new person at my work, right? And so I'm just like, okay, so there's all these guys that are just like, they meet me and they're like, I'm not going to tell her that I have a wife.
Oh, wow. I see.
Yeah.
But still.
I hate men. Yeah.
Men are trash.
Like one of the many reasons why I hate men, but yeah.
So while I still enjoyed joking around, I lost all desire to pursue anything past that. He didn't seem to notice, and eventually his girlfriend came to see him at work, and it was no big deal. So I convinced myself that the flirting was just in my head, and he must just be a friendly person. He was a salesman after all. They like that ambiguity, in my experience. I previously worked in sales, so I know sometimes it's hard to switch out of that charismatic persona. This was mistake number 2. Flash forward a few months, and I no longer worked at the car dealership, not exactly my dream job anyways. After a couple of weeks of not being employed there, I get a Snapchat from the Scrote. He added me on Snapchat while we worked together. It was more popular at the time, but didn't add me on any other social media. Yeah, Snapchat is like specifically like the cheaters app.
Yeah, definitely.
So especially if they don't want to add you anywhere else on social media, like that's kind of odd.
If it's just Snapchat, that's not good.
I was sus, so sure.
Cool. I mean, she's also said she's 20 or something, didn't she? Isn't that... Or...
Any flirty comments during the small talk convo, I asked outright about his super serious girlfriend I knew he had. He sends me a sad face and told me they broke up recently.
Sure. Lies. We're on a break. We're separated.
Lies! Yeah.
I'm in an unhappy marriage. We haven't had sex in 5 years. I've heard it all. Okay? Like, when men say these lies, I'm just like, immediately reject that as a lie.
Sad face. I don't know what it is about emojis, but only fuckboys use emojis. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I use emojis all the time, but I don't trust men that use emojis.
I like emojis. I like
You're right.
emoji.
I'm like suspicious of men that use emojis. I think it's because
you hate men, though.
Feel like their communication's not going to be straightforward, and you can feel the emotional manipulation behind it.
Yeah. I feel like when women communicate, we want to convey
9 more likes, and I'll give away a channel membership. Smash that.
Emotions through text. When women try to convey emotions through text, there's usually not a sinister reason for it. When men try to communicate emotions through text, I'm like, I feel emotionally manipulated.
Yeah. And it just comes across as immature as well. Like, use your words, Scrote.
I mean, women are the masters of emotional manipulation, though. It's weird that they say that like they're not the best at it.
Exactly. With that out of the way, I gave myself permission to flirt back a little. He was cute and funny, so what was the harm? So we're texting back and forth, talking, and the conversation starts to heat up from flirting to sexting. Ooh. If you read the conversation, you couldn't disagree.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem with like turning the conversation sexual when a guy hasn't taken you out on a formal date.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all for flirting, but
yeah, I would say like it's a fine line because like the line between like flirting and like actually making it like raunchy is like, I don't know, guys tend to push that line. I would just say something like, oh, maybe we could hang out sometime, or maybe like to like say something to imply that I'd be okay with seeing him outside of work and see if he asks me on a date. And if he doesn't, then I would just end the conversation because I don't want that shit in writing. Like
he was dropping heavy hints that he wanted to come see me that night, but didn't directly ask, so I didn't offer. Smartest decision I could have made.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because maybe not even 3 days later, I'm scrolling through Facebook and I see a video that tags someone I had added as a friend, some acquaintance I didn't remember adding. And coincidentally, it's the Scrote's, quote, ex-girlfriend who posted it.
Oh my God.
Wait, you're friends with his ex-girlfriend on Facebook? What?
She says it's a mutual friend, so someone else that she had added.
Oh, and it pops up sometimes.
Yeah, tagged the girlfriend of this guy.
Well, okay, small world, yeah.
I recognize her face in the video of what looks like her birthday party or something. I was curious and kept watching. Then out of the corner of the screen walks up, you probably already guessed, the guy who 72 hours ago was texting me about railing me in a bathroom.
Oh!
In a bathroom?
Honestly.
Ew. In a bathroom?
Romantic guy.
Is that what you said, bro?
Yes, railing her in a bathroom. Que romance.
In the loo?
Oh, wow, so romantic.
The British people say that, be like, I won't rail you in the loo.
Next to the dirty soap and hair crumbs and
use tampons and shit. Yeah, like gross.
That's disgusting. I was quite shook. Like when I was active in like the BDSM community, like the number of men who just shamelessly flirt when they had a girlfriend, and they would even say it in the same conversation. And then they would just be like, "Oh, we can have a threesome." I'm just like, "Fuck off." Oh, we can watch. My girlfriend can watch us fuck. I'm like, "Fuck off," even more.
That sounds not fun at all. Like, why for anyone except for the man? Why would you do that?
It honestly made me really, really cynical. And at one point, I literally swore off men because it's like they're just so unashamedly. Oh, I don't even know how to describe it. They're just so unashamedly shameless about cheating on their girlfriend behind their back. And when I even used to say to one of them, so if you knew that your girlfriend was talking the way you're talking to me to another dom, how would you feel? And he was like, "Oh, I wouldn't like it." I'm like, "There you fucking go then." Like,
there you fucking go then. Congrats to Zach. Got the membership. Good on you, pal.
Honestly, never underestimate the lack of empathy that men have and the boundaries they have at the same time, especially low value men. They have some of the strongest boundaries because the behavior the way they treat women and their girlfriends, they will never tolerate that behavior if it was done to them.
Of course not.
Men are just greedy. That's the thing. Like, men who cheat, they are just fucking greedy. Like, they'll have a perfectly good wife at home or good girlfriend at home, and they just want more, right? And so I think that's why I think the solution is for women to be more greedy. Like, I think it's okay for me to flirt. The way that I talk just normally is sort of flirtatious slightly. And if my boyfriend ever had a problem with that, I'd probably break up with him. But I have a problem with men who talk like that. So yeah, I support double standards like that.
But it's also annoying, Lilith, because these men are so audacious. Like,
she goes from like, you want to do that, and I do that. But if a guy did that
to literally look like they've come from the depths of Isengard from the Orc Pit, and they'll still be trying to fucking flirt. It's so audacious. And these women, they are so much, more attractive. They can easily attract more men. And it's like, you can barely attract one woman and you're treating her like shit. Like, that's just like, it's the audacity that gets to me. It really,
it's the audacity.
Side note, I just gotta ask, anybody want to chime in from our audience? Like, what is with the bathroom sex?
Yeah, I don't get that.
I've never had sex in a bathroom. So I worked at bars, and bar bathrooms are always gross, even though people try to fuck in there occasionally. And I don't get it. I'm like, it literally smells like piss water and vomit.
Like, it doesn't get me in the mood. Like, it doesn't make me horny to be there.
Yeah. You're right. Like, you're better off trying to like sneak it in like in the VIP section in the back.
Yeah, like, I don't know.
If you're that horny and shit.
Or like people having sex like behind the dumpster, behind the bar. Like, just, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm Canadian and I'm spoiled and we have all these beautiful, amazing parks that you could go to have sex with if you want sex in public.
Oh, yeah. Why don't you just fucking head on over to Banff and have sex in Banff?
The forest, right? So having a bathroom, it's like, why?
I just had a flashback of being maybe about 12 or 13 and walking past a bar sometime in the evening and watching what looked to be a homeless woman blowing a homeless man. And I think that it might have been my first visual of like what that looked like in the back of an alleyway.
Good for them.
But yeah, I understand because they don't really have any place to go. But like if you have a place to go, why the bathroom?
Yeah, why the bathroom? Yeah, or why like I don't get it. Yeah.
Because people are freaky.
He walks up to her, kisses her, and smiles at the camera. The video was posted 3 hours ago, and the fucking cherry on top, he then spins around, gets down on one knee, and proposes to her.
Oh, snap!
Oh shit!
Snap, Ola!
Really broke up my ass.
Yeah. Oh fuck! That's like a plot twist I was not expecting.
After I picked my jaw up off the floor, I used it to laugh my ass off. I didn't even bother to call him out. He clearly knew what he was doing. Block and delete. As for the other girl, I wish I could tell you I exposed him and saved the princess from the dragon, but he was calculating enough to use Snapchat where the messages disappear, so I had less than no proof. Also, checking out her socials, I saw she had some pretty misogynistic opinions on other women. Yeah. See, when you see that shit, like, yeah, don't even bother.
Yeah, I'm not sticking my neck out for you.
Yeah, and she's gonna blame you.
She'll blame you and she just won't believe you. But at the same time, though, I'm still somewhat of a fan, even if they don't believe me. But at least I can just say, I told you. Like, I used to all the time. Like, I'd find out because like men are pretty fucking stupid, especially low value men. So they would tell me like their girlfriend's socials, thinking that I would look at it to find a
low value men are the stupidest men.
Attractive, so he could have a threesome, and I'll just send her the screenshots. What she did with that is not up to me. What she did with that was not up to me, but at least I told her because I just feel like if I am in a position to tell her and I don't, I feel like I'm complicit.
Yeah, that's true. Also, honestly, just cause chaos.
I mean, low value men, they rely on women's silence, whether they're abusive or low value, they rely on women not saying anything, especially warning other women. So I don't want to be part of that culture.
I do generally say it is a good idea to warn women. And sometimes even if she ends up being a shitty person, it's like, why not just cause chaos in their life anyways?
Exactly. And at least you've told her. Like, it's not like you're keeping it a secret.
Yeah, you've taken the moral high road.
So I gotta confess, I actually had a building we used to live in, and I was renting out my extra parking space to a neighbor who had a wife and kids. And immediately when he came down to he would basically come down and give me rent for the parking space I was renting him every month. And then every single time he would start to ask me out, and I didn't say anything because they lived in the building. I don't know. I felt weird because they had kids. I really wanted to tell her when I saw her, your husband isn't shit, but I'd never figured out how to say it. And I was kind of afraid of him being a psycho and then stalking me.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, if you're stupid enough to try to like hit on someone who
That's
lives in your
fucking
building,
Yeah.
that like literally lives in the same building.
That is
I
fucking
mean, obviously,
insane.
I wouldn't, recommend it if it's going to put the woman in harm's way. Definitely not. But, where possible, I think that women, we just sort of need to have each other's backs. Even women who, like, the woman in this story, she's got misogynistic views, she's a pick-me, but it's not so much about the individual woman, and it's more about, rejecting this idea that if a guy is shitty, that we have to keep it to ourselves, because ultimately that only benefits the shitty men in society.
It's true. I'm trying to figure out like the best way to blow up this spot. Like, how would you have done it? Just commented on the video? I feel like I would just commented on the video.
No, I would have, again, like the BDSM, I would have just gone along with his bullshit and then either just outrightly ask you want a threesome or something, can I see what your girlfriend looks like or something like that.
She's like those fucking pedophile hunters, but for non-pedophiles who will just like get them dead to rights,
And then just did it that way. That's what I did. And men are stupid as hell, especially when they think there is a threesome at the end of it. That's what works for me. They would always give it up anyway. And then I'll just go and like send her the screenshot saying, like, by the way, this is what your dom's doing. I thought you should know about it.
Honestly,
Your
like,
dom is, hey, this is what your dom's doing. She's got a ball gag in.
there's so many married men that make flirty comments towards me or that hit on me, but they never like leave it.
But you do that too. Maybe that's why they're fucking flirting, because you just said that you're always flirty with
I've
everybody.
not had an opportunity where it's in writing. Most of these guys are smart, like especially the older guys, like they know not to leave that shit in writing. At least the guys that I like at my work and stuff.
Unlike Vince McMahon.
Yeah, I've not had that many opportunities to
blow up a Scrote's life.
I'm actually trying to think, like, have there been missed opportunities where I could have blown up a guy's life and I didn't? I mean, there's ones that were, like, unrelated to, like, cheating, but the cheating-specific ones, like, I mean, I've never, like, flirted with, like, I've never knowingly had a relationship with a married guy. I've heard of cases where, the other woman, she has a relationship with a man. She knows that he's married. And then when the relationship doesn't work out, that only then she'll tell the wife or whatever as, like, well, fuck you, like, as a retaliatory thing kind of thing. So I've heard of that happening, but I've never knowingly had dated a married man. Like, maybe there's been guys that, like, turn out to be married after the fact and stuff, but, like, that wasn't really... The opportunity has not yet presented itself to me, at least not in a way that would like, I feel like if I were to complain about every married guy that flirted with me, I would just like totally toast my connections and like,
burn it down, burn it all down.
I mean, my life would be like, people would think I'm a bitch and I'd be like, there'd be so many people I'd be complaining about that it would just end up reflecting negatively on me. You know what I mean? So it's tough. That's something for me to think about more because I do enjoy ruining men's lives. I'm trying to think, how do I do it in a way that doesn't ruin my life?
Right. That's really what it came down to.
I mean, she's ruined all of our lives, so.
Right, because the multitude of times where I had a guy try to talk to me on the sly when he knew he had a girlfriend, it was like, this would be more of a problem for me. And I'm like, I'm sure your girlfriend knows because of how like ain't shit you are in front of a lot of people, right? Because like some guys just aren't even sneaky, and that's what's fucked up, right? It's confusing. But anyways, so we continue. I don't know her and I don't want to judge, but if you ask me, I'd say she gave big pick me vibes. So I couldn't do much to help. I'm sure he's out there somewhere reoffending and she'll know soon enough.
Yeah, and that's just sad, to be honest. That just seems to be, it's just so common.
Yeah, no, her story checks out. I know guys like that at my work all the time. That's why I always used to say I'd never date a guy in sales. It's like dating a cop. Like, they're just like, they're fundamentally flawed. Like, I feel like the sort of person who's drawn to this career, like, they just have a certain underlying personality that makes them not
But you're in sales.
desirable as a
You do that job.
partner. But yeah.
Alrighty, so thanks, Kit, for that roast of Scrote. The fucking audacity of that man. Next up, we have a dating question from Anonymous. And the question asks, when would you end a marriage versus a relationship? Do you think marriages are worth doing more work and making more exceptions for after the initial vetting process? My husband has gotten more conservative the longer we have been married, 3 years, and I've become more liberal. I've never been one to equate politics with my ability to connect with someone as long as the core value of caring for people and respecting humanity is there. I feel like with COVID, the right-wing media propaganda sucked him in deep.
That's tough, yeah.
He started to say insensitive things. I'll give examples without the context. He says things lightheartedly,
Examples without the context?
but it disturbs me because they are aligning with his beliefs. So he'll say, well, my vote cancels out your vote anyway, so it doesn't matter what you do. You're slipping, referencing our shared faith because you are pro-choice. What? Do you believe old men can marry children now too?
I don't understand that, what he's trying to say here.
Yeah, the context would have helped there, actually.
He said?
He says, well, my vote cancels out your vote anyway.
I mean, that's true. His vote does cancel out her vote. It's like when they go to the polls, they're like literally, I mean, it's kind of a sweet deal where you go, neither of us have to go vote because, like, it's pointless.
So it doesn't matter what you do. I'm assuming the second sentence is her responding, saying, you're slipping, referencing our shared faith because you are pro-choice. What? Do you believe old men can marry children now too?
I don't...
I'm so confused.
Well, it sounds like he's pro-life and she's pro-choice.
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused too. Sorry, OP. Most disturbingly, as of late, in so many words, he said, I'll be able to be kinder to you if you sleep with me more. It's hard for me to want to be kind if we aren't having sex. Man, fuck this dude. No, okay.
Your husband's literally abusive. Fuck this guy.
No, dude, let me tell you why this pisses me off so much. Because this is like, if they're like Christian, this sounds like there's some flavor of Christian. All of the Christian books are all about how like women owe men sex and that like these guys like won't be nice to them. And like it's basically justifying men's emotional abuse if women don't have sex with them. And I'm like, what is sexy about a guy trying to emotionally manipulate manipulate you into sex. Nothing. So if he's getting into right-wing propaganda, he's absolutely on the path where they're telling him, like, if your wife doesn't have sex with you this amount of times, she's not doing her God-given duty. Like, God made one man and one female, you know.
I love that accent, bro. Please do that voice for
male and female, he created them, you know. Like,
I think also the Christianity today is just such a crapshoot of what it should be, because even though it's often, you know, commonly believed that the Bible is very anti-sex and it's very, you know, one-sided towards a man, which part of it is true, but at the same time, there's also like an entire book, I think it's called the Song of Solomon, that's basically about a man and a woman just enjoying each other's bodies, having really cool sex, being really romantic.
I mean, it's just Bible porn, though.
What's cool sex?
Bible porn? What?
I mean, but it's interesting, but that is never taught in sermons. That book is ignored in sermons. You know, why is that? But then you hear from idiots like Paul the Apostle, who was like,
Paul the Apostle.
Like, you can only not have sex if you both agree that you don't want to have it. So basically, if a woman doesn't want to have sex with her husband anymore for whatever reason, like, she needs his mutual agreement before they can stop having sex. Like, I think Paul was a slight incel, to be honest, from the sounds of it. 100% incel.
Paul the Apostle was an incel?
Yeah, 100%.
But it's just like, you know, why is that book? It was basically like, because I basically read the Bible in a year when I was super religious. And I was honestly shocked at that book because it's so different to what we know or to what Christianity nowadays teaches about sex. I've never heard of that book until I read the whole thing. And I'm like, damn. So the Bible isn't anti-sex in the way that it's taught.
I mean, I learned about Song of Solomon, and they do put that. It's like
a lot of it just kind of like making more people.
Basically the long, like, a gratuitous description of sex and like a woman's body that Solomon does. But again, I just feel like it's biblical porn. Like, it just feels like some Scrote that's just like describing his wife in like this mad, like, sexual way that we're supposed to feel like is inspiring, but it still feels like objectifying as hell to me.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay, I'm reading it now. It's not that long. Can I just read the like first
The
few
Bible objectifies women?
lines? Because that's really just to give a little teaser to the listeners who are like, "What the fuck are they talking about?" It's like the Song of Songs of Solomon. The bride confesses her love. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is better than wine. Your anointing oils are fragrant. Fragrant.
Fragrant.
Fragrant.
What's wrong with my pronunciation?
Fragrant.
Your name is oil poured out. Therefore, virgins love you. Draw me after you. Let us run. The king has brought me into his chambers. What? What?
I'm hard.
That's in the Bible?
Yes.
Oh shit.
Yeah, doesn't this just sound like some fake like porn setup to you? Like, it just sounds like some fake dialogue they're giving to a woman to set up the rest of the shit where he just goes in about her body.
I guess it was more though, like the way, I don't know. I mean, for me though, I still think that book or that narrative, it basically stands apart from the way like sex is subsequently
Is Paul the Apostle the one that Savannah fell in love with from the book?
taught about in the Bible, because it's the only, even though I guess biblically, like looking back, it still has a very, very misogynistic spin, but it seems to be the only part of the Bible where sex can be somewhat enjoyable for the woman and it can be a mutual activity. So when he starts talking about her body and the stuff that they're doing, it seems like the most mutual exchange, if you see what I mean. Anytime, you know, sex is like spoken about anywhere else in the Bible, it's basically don't do it. And if it is like spoken about in the context of a marriage, it still has so many rules.
God will smite you.
That, yeah, basically like Sodom and Gomorrah.
Okay, I read ahead some more. It was like, my beloved is to me a sachet of myrrh that lies between my breasts. Whoa!
There's more. Like, we go to like, I think it's chapter 7. It's like,
I don't even know the chapters, that's what it is.
your rounded thighs are like jewels, the work of a master hand. Your navel is a rounded bowl that never lacks mixed wine. Your belly is a heap of wheat encircled with lilies. Your 2 breasts are like 2 fawns, twins of a gazelle.
Isn't that cute?
Did you memorize that? Or are you reading that?
No, I'm reading. Oh, hell no, I didn't memorize this. Okay.
Memorize.
I'm reading it.
Oh my god, wow, we just read Bible porn. Anyways.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, every time I read this, it's like, she's like, yeah, you know, the woman just seems very passive. And then like, he's like all like, it just sounds like a very pornographic description to me, but.
I mean, I stand.
That sounds
No, I'm kidding.
pornographic.
I stand Bible porn. I mean, I haven't read the whole thing, but I just think me as a godless heathen, I love the juxtaposition of like Bible porn. I don't know why. That's just like delightful to me. I just learned this for the first time today, so thank you.
It's such a juxtaposition to like the general doom and gloom of sex ed in the Bible. I just find it so different.
Exactly.
Thy 2 breasts are like 2 young roes that are twins. I mean, this is incel, like porn shit.
But when do incels comment on women's breasts though, apart from when they want to tear off?
Fuck are you talking about? Everything's incel? The Bible's an incel
The joints
book?
of thy thighs are like
What?
jewels, the work of the hands of a cunning worksman. Like,
I mean, I kind of think that's adorable in a way. Like the whole like my lover is like a sachet of myrrh between my breasts. I was like, whoa, okay, that's like some steamy shit. But like, yeah, the like, wow, okay. Anyways, back to the question. I love how every time someone asks a question, we went a random tangent. Anyways, hope you enjoyed that.
It's just to bring everyone else up to speed about the Bible and like what we're talking about when we're talking about how the Bible talks about sex. So let's just finish the discussion, then we'll talk about some more of the details. But the reason why I went off is because I was like, oh yeah, that's a massive red flag. I'll be able to be kinder to you if you sleep with me more. It's hard for me to want to be kind if you aren't having sex. That's the last sentence I said.
That's like really coercive, actually.
And so OP writes, truthfully, I'm very
coercive
torn.
in
If
the Bible?
in a dating relationship, of course I'd end it. I'm very dependent on him having no family besides a brother who has offered his house if I decide to move out. Furthermore, me and my husband have a mortgage together, and the cherry on top, he put 50K of our 65K savings into crypto. Oh Lord.
No.
Oh no. Okay,
bum.
I'm 25 and he's 31. We met when I was 21 and we got married by 22. Dress laughing because this sounds like the horror story you read on our relationships, but it's my life. Goodness.
So basically, they got married when she was 22 and he was 28.
That's slightly problematic, yeah.
How the fuck? That's problematic?
Fucking hell.
They're in their 20s. They're both in their 20s.
He's 6 years older than her. So yeah, so like
I think if it's more than a 5-year age gap and one of the parties is under 25, I'm kind of...
She's literally making this up right now. Whatever she's about to say, I can hear it in her voice that she's currently making this up.
sus.
I was going to say that same. Because at 22, you're still like, I couldn't fathom. You're still mentally a child.
I meet like 22-year-old guys
At 32, you ladies are still mentally a child.
at work, and I'm their boss, and these like guys are flirting with me, but they're like children to me. Like the idea of anything happening between me and them just makes me feel dirty, right? And so I'm like, how do men, the genders are reversed, but the age gap is the same. Like, how do they rationalize that to themselves? It's disgusting.
So to answer your question, I guess we'll dissect it. When would you end a marriage versus a relationship? In this case, these are massive, massive red flags, like him going down the red pill. This definitely sounds like a guy who's getting red pilled. And then he was really dumb enough to put your savings in crypto. So he's the type of person that is ripe for that kind of grift.
Yeah.
So it makes me worried for both his like general judgment as a person, as well as the fact that he's specifically going down this red pill path. So I'm like, personally, I would abandon ship, but I also think maybe if he hasn't shown anything up until this, like maybe might be able to figure out if it's temporary and maybe go to counseling, like attempt to go to counseling and just like see where his head's out and see if he can snap out of it. But like with the age gap and him
He
specifically
needs to go to like conversion therapy, but for red pill conversion therapy.
falling for this shit makes me feel he's either maybe massively too immature to be married, and also that he may get worse, in which case that's going to be very dangerous for you. So I would definitely be like secretly planning to my escape. This doesn't read to me like you have to leave right now, but you should definitely like start giving yourself an escape hatch, and then at the time like tell him like we need to go to counseling, like this is unacceptable, like set a boundary.
I don't think counseling's a good idea.
I would temporarily separate, honestly.
I think this is the chronic issue, and counselling, especially when there is clearly abuse going on, is too late. Like, it's not going to work. And I partly think that this is sort of where I guess I personally don't because I personally see marriage as like purely a business decision. That's not that I'm not going to love the person that I marry, but I wouldn't like marry like somebody unless there was a financial benefit to it. So I see it a bit differently. But I believe that if the terms of the marriage have been broken, which they have been, in that he's not the person that you thought he was, he's abusing you, then it's completely okay to walk away just without working on for example, working on the relationship in quotation marks at all. Because by sending in this question, it's clear that she has tried to figure it out, that she's trying to, I guess, adapt her behavior to what he is doing, and it hasn't worked. So to be honest, I'd even say just abandon ship. Like, you're young, you can start again. Don't get sucked into the whole I don't want to get divorced. And you know what, part of the reason why I think divorce stigma tends to be worse towards women is that divorce is a way out for women out of shitty marriages. And so if society stigmatizes women getting divorced, like, women are less likely going to see it as a way out of a shitty relationship. And again, who does that benefit? Shitty men. So I just abandon ship, sis.
Yeah, she's 26.
Oh, she's 25. She's young.
Yeah, you got lots of time to find a new husband.
She's young.
That is
Get out
true.
now.
The only reason I say like try marital counseling is like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like if you marry someone and if they're not like, if you don't feel like they're a danger to you, like maybe you owe it to your spouse. I don't know if I maybe personally feel that way, to like try one more time than you would in a relationship you weren't married.
Yeah, the original question. Okay, so the original question was like, if there's something wrong with your husband, do you like, what was the original question? It was like, do you put more effort into trying to fix an imperfect relationship?
Yeah. Do you think, when would you end a marriage versus relationship? Do you think marriages are worth doing more work and making more exceptions for after the initial vetting process?
So I want to reframe the question a little bit, because the reason why we have the vetting with FDS is to try to prevent a situation where you're in a marriage and you're like, this is a guy where if we were dating, I'd break up with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the goal, it's like, if you're in this situation, it's almost like, I wouldn't say it's too late, but I would say that, if you're married and you're finding yourself like, oh, this person has traits that if we were dating, I'd break up with them. Like, if it was minor, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like, what's a minor thing that I would tolerate in marriage, but would break up with in dating. I can't think of a single example, right? But if it's something like petty, like, and you have kids and a house together, then maybe, okay, yeah. If it's like small and it's not related to abuse and it's not driving you crazy or anything like that, then okay, maybe, yeah, you learn to put up, maybe. But like, I'm talking about like small things, like, I don't know, they wear mismatching prints or something, like, really petty, right? Not like fundamental like disrespect.
I gambled all our life savings on bullshit. Yeah, actually, that actually makes me most mad.
The biggest thing, actually, and I wanted to follow up with what Savannah said about seeing marriage as a business contract. That's the other thing, is you are allowed to walk from an unfavorable business relationship. It happens in business all the time, actually. Companies dissolve, partners quit. It's harder, but it does happen, right? And it does happen all the time where businesses...
Yeah, it happens in fucking marriages too. It's called divorce.
People will decide to partner up and have business together. And then if one person makes an extremely bad financial decision without consulting the other partner, yeah, a lot of times the business ends. They decide, the partner that was scored decides fuck this, we can't recover from this, or they decide to walk away, right? That happens all the time, actually. So yeah, I think honestly, just the whole 50,000 in crypto alone, that would be imagine if you paired up with someone to start a restaurant and then they decided to I don't know, order $50,000 of food that you end up having to throw away because of a stupid decision or something. I don't know. Imagine wasting that much money and then you're both fucked. It's may as well at that point just sell the business, try to recoup your loss as much as you can and move on. At that point, the business relationship is damaged. You can't continue working together, honestly, at that point.
I think for me, I just draw the line if there's any hint of abuse. If you're dating somebody or in a marriage, it's that's a death blow to the relationship, because abusive people don't change. This is the number one thing that Lindy Bancroft said, is that they do not change. So there is no point sticking around, because it will only get worse. So I think you can work on issues of marriage, absolutely, as long as there is not abuse in the marriage or in the relationship. If it's abuse, then you need to discard it, I'd say.
Yeah, the line about I would treat you better if you had sex with me more, that's coercive control. Dump immediately.
It's coercive. And the fact that I wouldn't be surprised if this guy eventually baby trapped her, because he's saying things like, oh, because you're pro-choice. So I'm assuming that he's not pro-choice. It's also when she says, my husband, that he's gotten more conservative the longer
he's dating a libtard is the problem.
Been married. So his views are getting worse over time. This isn't someone you have a future with, I'm sorry, or a happy future with.
I think I agree with you guys, and I might actually change my answer.
The hen said so. Time to divorce the guy.
It's gonna be it is, since she's saying she's kind of dependent on him right now. I'm trying to give you buy you some time here, but you definitely probably need to wrap this marriage the fuck up. Because the biggest red flag.
Just take your brother's house and bail.
Yeah, and the other thing too is if he's this financially irresponsible and you're still married, it could affect you as well. So I think in this case, reading this, it's obvious.
Anybody could have put 50 grand into Cum Rocket. It was a sure thing.
This marriage is not beneficial for you anymore. The question is do you owe him anything at all? And I think Liz Savannah are saying no, fuck it. Jump ship, actually in agreement with them.
Do not have a baby with him at all.
Don't have a baby with him at all. Not, especially not like this. Yeah, because you'll be stuck. That'd probably be the only thing.
Here's the thing. If you're married and you don't have kids together, I'm so quick to be divorced. It's so much easier when you don't have kids. Once you have kids, it's a lot more difficult. And, divorce can traumatize the kids. You have to weigh the cost. You have to do your own cost benefit analysis. Does the potential harms, is the marriage so bad enough that it outweighs the potential harms of divorce? Then yes, divorce. The harms are so high, to stay together would be more harmful than to divorce. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you have no kids. You're still more than young enough to get remarried and have more kids if you want to. He's irresponsible with money, and he's spiraling into the red pill conservative manosphere. All those are but also gives you more of a reason to end the marriage with little consequence to yourself. So I think you should wrap this marriage up. Honestly, you're
25, you're young. You can find a non-scrote to settle down. Yeah.
And the age gap was never good.
But also, based on your track record, you're probably just going to wind up with a different scrote.
You don't have to see. I'm also a big proponent of not seeing relationships as having to last forever or even a long time or a life sentence. The minute a relationship stops being, enjoyable or fun for me, or the work starts outweighing any benefits, I'm gone. And I don't think that it isn't a failure to bail on a relationship that isn't working for you, in my opinion.
Yeah, leave and then absolutely fleece him in court so he can call in the manosphere and talk about how the FDS bitch has told his ex-wife to divorce rape him. So
yeah, good luck, sis.
Rape is not okay. Everybody.
So yeah, this guy can get fucked. Yeah, good luck, sis.
Yeah, good luck, sis, and keep yourself safe. Yeah, keep yourself safe.
Yeah, let us know what happened. We're kind of curious too, because we've given our advice here. Let us know what you did.
First off, they're not curious. They just want to know if they have the influence of their podcast to make this chick literally divorce this guy.
We're rooting for you, so all the best.
What I'm curious about.
Yeah, I think I'm switching you guys. Get rid of this motherfucker.
Fuck this guy. Yeah. Actually, don't fuck this guy. Do the opposite.
Yeah, fuck this guy. You don't got kids. He's about to spend all your life savings.
He's gonna be one of these guys on the manosphere just being like you said, these FDS bitches told my ex-wife to divorce rape me. Oh, my life is so horrible. I'm gonna go dread game some 20-year-old.
Dread game some 20-year-old.
What's dread game?
It sounds like she's financially dependent on him, but if your brother's giving you an escape hatch, yeah, take it. Yeah, and if you need to buy yourself time because you really don't have any money to stand on your own 2 feet, then buy yourself time with counseling, but try to end your marriage behind the scenes. All right, so we have next on the docket is a Scrote Strike Back question from David. If a man is looking for a casual relationship, is that a red flag? What does anyone who isn't me understand looking for a casual relationship to mean?
So, I mean, my number one problem with men who are seeking casual, quote unquote, casual relationships is that they're basically just like using women for sex. Like, they're basically using women as like a, a hole that they can stick their dick into. They generally don't care about the woman's pleasure. They just want to get off, right? I've said before, like, again, I support double standards
What if women are into that, though?
against men, between men and women. It's only fair because we live in an unequal world. So I think it's fine if women want a casual relationship. I think it's fine to use men for sex, but I think it's not nice for men to use women for sex. And so I immediately don't trust men who are looking for casual relationships.
Okay.
I actually agreed with that, Lilith. So before we jumped on this call, I was like,
I actually agree with Lilith.
it matters as long as he's honest. But actually, I've been like listening to what Lilith said, and the way men talk about the women they are in casual relationships with, so they have no respect for them. They don't see any reason to make sure that they're sexually satisfied.
What if you do, though? What if you do have respect for them and you do want to satisfy them? Then is it fine?
I agree as well. And then the other thing, like with casual sex, is that it lowers the bar for all men because the bar of entry is generally quite low. They then carry that around with them as well and project that onto other women, like generally speaking too. And another thing is
chicks are commies. They don't like free markets.
that a lot of men, because they don't have the sexual or the Casanova capital to outright demand a casual relationship from a woman because she'll tell them to get fucked or to not get fucked, they often resort to deception to get their casual sex. So this is where you get things like situationships. This is where you get even, some, men, they will get into relationships in quotation marks just to have a guaranteed pussy supply, but it's a relationship in all but name. Everything about it is casual. So she won't meet his family. She's not going to appear on his social media.
He's still acting single.
Yeah, he's acting single. He'll start talking about poly and all that shit. So I just think that ultimately, because again, like Lila said, the sexual dynamic is so, in a way, it's completely stacked against men's favor. If they do want a casual relationship, almost 10 times out of 10, they're going to have to resort to some sort of deception or manipulation of women to get that relationship.
And so that's why I'm like, the fact that they have to lie to get casual sex is another reason why I don't trust. Again, I've justified in not trusting men who want casual relationships. And also it's like, why would you want just a casual relationship? Like, what about a serious relationship is it that you don't want? The only situation I could think of is like, maybe you're planning on moving in like 6 months to a year or something, but you still want to like date. I could sort of see that if there's like an inherent time limit, like just the circumstances of your life change or something like that, maybe. But like, or if you have a job that involves traveling a lot.
I mean, she can weigh you down.
And, you're not in the same place for a long time. I could maybe understand that. But if you're living in the same city, you're not planning on moving, what is it about a serious relationship? Like, what traits of a serious relationship do you not want?
It sort of speaks to that.
Their value system, right?
It does. And it also indicates they've got issues with attachment. Like, it's well documented in research that people who actively seek out casual relationships, their ability to bond with intimate partners is compromised. And all of the guys who I knew who were into casual relationships, they had serious problems with attachment and being a stable partner for women because ultimately...
Yeah, because they didn't want to be. That's all it was, is they just didn't want. They go, why don't you want to be a stable partner? And they're like, I don't want to.
Getting into that sort of relationship, especially repeatedly, is going to limit your ability to effectively pair bond with another person. And so even when they did find somebody that they really, really liked and got into a relationship with, they would jeopardize it by saying, can we have an open relationship, for example?
You want to know the funny thing? So the men in the manosphere, they've been saying for years, like, oh, women with a body count above 2 or whatever are incapable of pair bonding with men, yada, yada, yada. This idea of like women with a high body count can't bond with, can't pair bond or whatever is a complete projection. I've actually found the opposite to be true. I found like women who were like virginal and stuff when they were younger, when they get married and they get older, that's when they cheat because they didn't have their hoe phase when they were younger, right? It's like you have to have your hoe phase.
Gotta have the hoe phase.
I don't think you have to have a hoe phase, by the way, but I do notice, men complain like, oh, my girl was like wild when she was younger, now she wants to settle down, yada, yada, yada. I mean, I think that's a pretty normal life trajectory. It's like for women, it's like you realize, oh, all this like casual sex wasn't worth it. What really matters is like love and connection and having someone that you can share life with and stuff, right? I find with men, it's the opposite. They tend to, when men go through a hoe phase, it actually does affect their ability to pair bond. This whole idea that women can't pair bond if they have a certain body count is complete projection. Anyways, where we got off topic. What was the question? Sorry.
Oh, you got off topic, did you?
So his question is just like, is a red flag? And then the answer is yeah. Like, I think for 90% of women, they're going to see that as a red flag because it's always an uneven exchange, right? Like, there's just so many men who want to keep it casual, so to speak, and they're all not worth, their dick is not worth the skin that it contains. I fucked that joke up. Like, their dick is not. Like,
was that going to be a joke, was it?
Their dick is not worth the skin it's stitched together with. So, yeah. Anybody who's going to understand a casual relationship is like free prostitution.
Like, guys who want a casual relationship, they kind of remind me of those people who go around with like coupons trying to get as much shit as they can for free. Like,
oh, now we're talking shit about guys using coupons? Even though it's probably mostly women using coupons?
Their energy, right? Like, how can I get as much as I can? How can I maximally benefit myself and not have to pay anything? I only want to receive, I don't want to give. That's what guys who are looking for casual relationships are like. Like, it's like just weird. It's cringy. I mean, it's not weird because it's actually very common, but I just think those people I don't relate to them. I don't like get them,
Okay, so We answered that question from David. So before we wrap, we're going to add one little
David, you goddamn turncoat. Why are you sending them questions?
feature to this
Just one little freebie.
on our end, which is like roasting the funniest reasons why people quit our Patreon.
Yeah, most people quit our Patreon for financial reasons, and I understand that. You know, it's a tough economy, so no hate there. But some people quit the Patreon for literally the dumbest fucking reasons, and this is probably the stupidest one, actually, and I just wanted to laugh at it.
So this person canceled us because we made fun of Alec Vade Menon. So she writes, making fun of Alec V. Menon, what did they ever do to you? You mentioned the unfairness of punching down in the Will Smith episode. I see that as a punch down. Have you read their writings? Unfortunately, some of it, and yes, and it's a problem, but we'll get into that.
Didn't this Alec Vade Menon person say that like
What the
little
fuck are
girls
we
can be
talking
kinky and that like little girls have sexual desires and stuff? Like this guy's a fucking like groomer. Like I know this word's been banned from social media, but it's like this person's a creep.
If you don't know who Alec Vade Menon is, they are a they are a
Based.
non-binary performance artist. Looks like Fozzie Bear got hit with a clown makeup gun.
Yeah.
Now we're
Is the best
talking.
way I could try to describe the way Alec Vade Menon looks like. Just everything they do is offensive to the senses.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I actually don't mind if men want to wear dresses or wear makeup and stuff, but it's like what gets me is that if a woman dressed like Alec Vade Menon, she'd get like dragged to oblivion.
And Lilith, Alec is not a man.
Yeah.
Alec is a they.
Is a they, is a I find it's like okay, I just find it offensive with this like your eyes can recognize the male secondary sex characteristics, right? I don't like the power move of being made to pretend to like I don't see what my eyes see, you know? Anyway, so this person will just wear like the ugliest fucking dresses, like different colors, mismatching prints, like literally like ill-fitting. If a woman dressed like
And just when they completely lost us all, they get us right back, huh?
that, she'd be dragged to oblivion. She'd like go viral for being like how for oh she's so ugly or whatever. You know, people would cyberbully her.
And the gaudy makeup as well. Like, it's just, who are you kidding?
I'm just offended that like a male can dress this way and like be hug boxed and like yes, oh my
Whoa.
god, queen, like celebrating diversity, yada 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 kind of thing.
They let this shit on YouTube?
So that's why I know this person canceled because we made fun of this person. I just wanted to double down on making fun of this person.
So let me just read the rest of this comment and we'll just go back in on Alec Vade Menon. So I think it's actually Alec Vade Menon.
Alok, yeah.
There's a compelling reason for their not shaving. For the quirky fashion, trans and NB people face as much discrimination in society as cis-het women do. So to hear you all cackling about it was disappointing and unnecessary. I'm not sure if you all just haven't done your research as deeply on queer issues as women's issues, or you have and you just do not care. Not sure which is worse. I really appreciated everything you posted, but when I think about you pumping trans people in with the misogynistic men and saying they make everything about them, it gives me an uncomfortable cognitive dissonance, which I won't maintain. Sis, you're gonna get grifted by men your whole life.
Yeah.
Like I'm reading this and I'm like, if you can't tell that Alec Vade Menon is taking the piss and this is entirely a grift.
Damn.
I don't-
You think his whole thing is I mean, he is really effective in all this stuff. If you don't know him, he's like this Indian dude who just looks like a normal one, but then he just like dresses like a chick, basically.
Understand these women where they'll agree with FDS, like, yeah, like men lie, like you shouldn't believe what men said. Yeah, men exploit women, men lie, they are sexually depraved, whatever. But as soon as a man says, oh, I'm non-binary, I'm a woman, they just like believe them, right? Are you that fucking gullible, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Are
how
you
can
that
mistrust
fucking
men,
gullible?
And then the moment they say that one thing, it's like, okay, now I believe you, right?
The moment they change their pronouns, it's like, oh, so oppressed. Poor you, please.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Let me be clear. We're going to read a few excerpts of the things that Alec Vade Menon has written that are extremely problematic.
Okay, do you have some samples?
I think all the rest of the work you do is really important. It's worth noting that I'm thinking about all the other media sources and considering what area of life or social issue they allow that's harmful in some way. Obviously, one person can't advocate for everything all at once, but it's also possible to be pro something and not bash something else. One more point I'd like to make is that if you read Alok V. Menon's responses to the mocking or hateful comments on their Instagram page, they're the total opposite of FDS. Pretty wild. Anyways, I don't know if you'll read this, and I probably won't find out. I hope if you read this message, it becomes something you can learn from or grow from instead of just laughing at my preferences or sensitivity. To be honest, knowing the way cis men screw over trans women, they could benefit from this advice. Wishing you the best. First of all, Alok Vade Menon is not trans. They're non-binary. They're not transitioned. They've never said they're transitioned. They're just like that kind of femme quote presenting male person. So I think that's an important distinction because once again, it feels more or less, it feels like a grift, right? So this is a person who said very, very problematic things.
Yeah. I don't know. Have you heard of like, Stefankny or other like, woo-woo people? And it's like,
Woo-woo
Read an entire
people.
article like guilt tripping the queer community because they couldn't get laid, basically saying that they were being discriminated against by males because they didn't want to have sex with a person who clearly has some kind of personality disorder and is grifting everybody.
Personality disorder. This is what?
Seems like they're actively trying to make themselves physically repulsive to everybody.
that's the thing. I feel
Physically
like
repulsive.
And then there's the other non-binary performer or whatever. I can't remember their name, but that was in the
This podcast has reached a new low.
like the same article about like, why can't my queer friends get laid article, that one. Or why can't my non-binary queer friends get laid kind of question. It's like, it almost feels like a power move on their part to be that repulsive and still expect sex. That's just male entitlement, right? A woman who's that unattractive wouldn't be like, why won't men fuck me? I don't know. Some maybe
I don't know about that. Okay.
people do like I don't know. Are there women who do the whole like, oh, it's like bigotry for you to not fuck me? I feel like women mostly just hate themselves and get a fucking eating disorder or whatever.
Or become femcells. But yeah, no, I mean, in this particular instance, I just kind of felt like if you believe everything a male person says to you at face value and never critique it, like you're going to keep getting manipulated. I thought it was particularly weird. And I don't even remember the comment we made about Alok Vaidmenon, but I thought this is like a hilarious reason to cancel only because of the fact that like, yeah, if you're the type of person that's going to follow that person like uncritically, then it's probably best that you
also, quite frankly, stop expecting us to be nice people. Okay, we've been very upfront about that. We're bitches. Okay,
That's
like we
true.
are not like, we don't dance around people's feelings, except for maybe like women have been abused and so on, right? Like we'll feel compassion for women, for female people, right? But stop expecting us to be
What are female people? What does that even mean?
compassionate towards males, okay? Except for maybe like literal children who are innocent victims of male violence, that kind of stuff. I'll feel compassion for like children, but like adult men, no. Like,
It's because women conflate being nice with being kind, and they're not the same thing. Being nice is a passive thing. Being kind involves speaking the truth and having boundaries. So being nice as a woman is not going to get you any awards. And if you think about this whole, people like Alok, they were propped up by primarily women for the longest time. Like it was primarily women who were accepting of all this stuff. And now a lot of these women have now become critical of that thing. Why do you think that is? Are all these women like hateful bitches who are TERFs who turned overnight, or have they realized that it is a deeply misogynistic and grifting thing that he's doing?
Yeah, so this is like the statement that I think pissed a lot of the female feminists off, where Alok Vaidmenon was saying, this type of legal carceral culture relies on two things: the construction of morally abhorrent perpetrators and scapegoats, and the production of pure innocent victims. In this case, and as in so many cases in the past, those victims are archetypical white, cis, innocent little girls. We totally need to challenge that white Christian supremacist right-wing rhetoric around trans bodies, absolutely. But we also need to seriously overhaul the idea that there is a perfect victim anywhere. I believe in the radical notion that little girls, like the rest of us, are complicated people. There are no fairy tales and no princesses here. Little girls are also queer, trans, kinky, deviant, kind, mean, beautiful, ugly, tremendous, and peculiar. Your kids aren't as straight and narrow as you think they are, like everybody else. I've been a cute little girl. No, you haven't. And a gender non-conforming young adult. Let me tell you, everywhere along that spectrum, I've been complicated and strange. Yeah, that last part, you've been complicated and strange, is correct. But like everything else here is pretty incorrect. And yes, we do correct.
Plus the whole like, oh, there's no innocent victims. What does that even mean? Like when I say, oh yeah, victims can be flawed, like I'm talking about women like Amber Heard who like fight back or whatever. Those women, are they quote unquote perfect victims? No, because the perfect victims, like, yeah, women who don't fight back, women who, it's like a sort of like
little girls, kinky, deviant stuff. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? I mean, what are they talking about?
Do you want to comment on this?
I mean, we can keep going. So the 1973 horror flick The Exorcist is my favorite snapshot of the cultural place of white cis little girls. In the film, a little girl with a single mother is possessed by the devil. From another perspective, the little girl is actually exploring her sexuality, masturbation, and so on, and her own demons meanness, right?
Doesn't she literally stab her vagina with a cross in that movie? Like, that's sexual violence.
Obviously, white men from the church have to be brought in to save her since her single mom can't do it alone. I think they brought in a priest. But what if instead of moving from the Exorcist model of little girlhood, we move from a place that acknowledges that no one is the perfect pure flower that can be corrupted, that everyone is once capable of receiving and enacting violence, including little girls, that we all give and receive violence to varying degrees, that is not a fairy tale. No one is purely good or evil. Look around, there are no princesses. I'm like, yeah, no, Alok Vaidmenon. Like, we have safeguarding around children because children don't shit.
Is this person trying to like victim blame like little girls?
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. They're basically sexualizing children, sexualizing little girls, basically trying to assert that adult men and little girls have the same amount of agency and responsibility, which is crazy.
Yeah, there's like so much like Darvo victim blaming, like, yeah, like say, oh, she wanted it, she was asking for it, kind of like implications. It's such a dirty, gross sentence, right? And so, yeah, we're going to make the fucking fun out of Alok, yeah, we're gonna roast this person.
There's a lot of discussion about like how male people or people who are assigned male at birth, however you view it.
This guy's not a male person. He's a woman sometimes.
And who decide later on to transition to either fully transition to women or become some kind of gender non-conforming male with the binary pronouns or non-binary pronouns that Alok Vaidmenon is. But I think everyone should be in agreement that it's not appropriate to sexualize little girls in this manner, and also to try to take away quote unquote little girls' innocence, to give more leeway for a grown adult men. That's crazy. And say that like we have to deconstruct the idea that we should safeguard children for the benefit of gross men who want to cross dress. So sorry you were mad about that. We don't apologize.
Yeah, I want to be very clear. We do not apologize for making fun of Alok. And thank you for canceling, and I hope you have a lovely day.
This is where the train stops and we part ways, because I kind of hate when I see women do this, because I'm like, oh, you're going to get grifted a lot
Yeah.
by men. Because I'm like, this is pretty. There's a lot of things that are like, okay, you may not see it coming, but like if you don't see the grift for what it is when it pertains to this person, then I question your judgment on honestly everything.
Yeah.
So, Diamond.
Tell them how you really feel. Tell them how you really feel.
Send us more of your complaints to our Patreon.
Send us
These
more
chicks
complaints
are
or
bitches.
managerial review.
Questions, roasted scrotes, queen shits, narcissists, whatever you want to do. Sign up for our Patreon, patreon.com/the female dating strategy, and you can submit your own to be read aloud on the podcast on a future episode.
No.
You can also discuss.
All right. That was episode 73 of the Female Dating Strategy Podcast, and that's all for me today. Folks, thank you for joining in. I appreciate you all. I don't have a third episode in me. I apologize. But we will be back next week. I'm going to try and have a guest for next week. I'm going to bring someone in the studio. Maybe JJ will come in next week, and we'll cover episode 74 of the Female Dating Strategy Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for joining me on this Sunday. If you'd like to support the stream, as always, Patreon, Locals, YouTube, buy a shirt, lowvaluemail.com for some merch. I have been Danny Polstruck. Thank you again to all the scrotes, all the negative value males, the low value males, the zero value males. That's a new one. And the high value males. Apparently, some of you do exist. I will be back Tuesday night for an all new episode of Low Value Mail. Hope to see some of you there. Otherwise, have a good rest of your Sunday night, everybody. Bye.
You know it, all my shit heroic. Empathic abilities, yeah, my face be also stoic. Bleep, blow up, nigga, that just means I'm working. They see me as a leader, so that's why I'm Captain Kirkin. These tracks from the stars, that much is for certain. You can feel this hit if you up or if you hurt. I'm raising my stock, not talking my feet or some Birkin. Number Johnny 5, got a fucking short circuit. Bring the track to life when I spit phenomenally. When I hit, she feel that shit in her abdominals. These rappers make me laugh like comic view, they comically. You know I got a ball out, I hit the track running just like Sonic do. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, they was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, and they tried to down me on some KO type shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, now we pulling up fresh on some flight shit. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, they was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah, and they tried to down me on some KO type shit. Yeah, they don't wanna turn on my light switch.